Chapter 151, 151, The God Above Us.
Imu-sama, her strength.
When Saint Saturn mentioned Imu, his expression trembled with the same fear he had shown when facing Thorn Ashveil, revealing that he was not exaggerating. Imu's power was indeed unfathomable.
Then tell me,
Ashveil said calmly, his tone laced with amusement.
what makes you think Imu can defeat me? If what you say is true, perhaps I'll consider sparing you.
He leaned back slightly, a cold smile curving his lips. Imu, the supposed ruler of this world, was someone worth understanding. Once he dealt with Imu, no one on this sea would ever threaten him again.
Imu-sama.
Saint Saturn stammered.
Possessing various abilities.
To save his life, he had no choice but to reveal Imu's secret.
Various abilities.
Ashveil's brows lifted, genuine curiosity flickering in his eyes.
So, someone else like me exists in this world.
It seemed Imu's rule over the world was not merely political, but born of absolute strength. The ability to wield multiple powers was something that defied every known law of the seas. That was worth investigating.
Oh, you're not trying to trick me, old man. Is there really someone who can possess multiple powers like I do?
Ashveil asked, though his smirk hinted that he already knew the answer. Above them, the glowing energy sphere expanded, releasing crackling arcs of lightning that illuminated the heavens. The surrounding space distorted beneath its pressure, as if reality itself was being torn apart.
I would never dare deceive you.
Saint Saturn shouted, trembling.
There truly exists a godlike being above me, Imu-sama.
Spare me, please. If you spare me, I'll explain everything to Imu-sama. I'll make her acknowledge your existence, grant you a position even above the fleet admiral, above all of us.
He fell to his knees, desperation overcoming his dignity.
You would be second only to one person and above everyone else.
Then tell me.
Ashveil said calmly, his tone laced with amusement, what makes you think Imu can defeat me? If what you say is true, perhaps I'll consider sparing you. He leaned back slightly, a cold smile curving his lips. Imu, the supposed ruler of this world, was someone worth understanding. Once he dealt with Imu, no one on this sea would ever threaten him again. Imu-sama.
What kind of abilities does Imu possess?
The only reason he was wasting time talking was to gather information. Knowledge was power, after all. To face an opponent like Imu without preparation would be reckless, even for him.
Imu-sama's abilities.
Saint Saturn hesitated, frowning deeply. Imu was his master. Revealing her secrets could doom him, yet refusing meant certain death. Ashveil's voice softened, though his smile remained cold.
If you don't tell me, how can I believe you?
The glowing energy sphere lowered ominously, and its chilling aura crept closer to the trembling elder.
This.
Saint Saturn blurted, panic flooding his face. Ashveil's eyes narrowed. The next moment, a streak of icy mist burst forth from the sphere, slamming into the elder's leg. A frost spread rapidly, turning flesh and bone into solid ice. A scream pierced the air, echoing across the ruined sky.
Oh, this isn't ordinary ice. My leg, it's gone.
Saint Saturn howled in agony, his eyes wide with disbelief. The cold bit into his cells, gnawing at him from within. He could feel life draining away, the frost consuming his very being. He tried to resist, channeling his Conqueror's Haki to stop the spread, but the moment his energy clashed with Ashveil's, it was devoured. The icy power contained Conqueror's Haki within it. His Haki was being overwhelmed and consumed entirely.
Terrifying.
Saint Saturn thought, horror twisting his face. It's no wonder this man is called a demon.
If you can't remember,
He said lightly.
I can help you remember. My attack will only stop when you do.
The elder's mind collapsed under fear.
I'll tell you. Please stop, Ashveil-sama.
He screamed hoarsely. He could already feel his leg shattering beyond repair. If he waited any longer, even his life would slip away. Ashveil tilted his head slightly, his expression almost kind.
You should have said that earlier. If you had, your leg wouldn't have been crippled.
To the elder, those words were more humiliating than the pain itself. His leg was gone, and yet Ashveil spoke as if he were doing him a favor. The bitterness rising in Saint Saturn's chest nearly choked him, but he dared not show it. His dignity as one of the world's highest authorities was gone. Before Thorn Ashveil, such titles meant nothing. He was a predator among kings, and they were merely prey. The frost slowly receded as Ashveil dispersed the energy ball. The oppressive chill lifted, leaving silence in its wake. The elder collapsed to his knees, clutching what remained of his frozen leg, breathing heavily as sweat poured down his wrinkled face. Ashveil's voice broke the silence, smooth and cold.
Now then,
Saint Saturn swallowed hard, trembling as his lips moved.
Imu-sama.
Ashveil's eyes narrowed thoughtfully.
Interesting, so the ghost of history still walks the earth.
His voice carried neither anger nor surprise, only a quiet, dangerous intrigue. For a moment, the winds howled around them, carrying with it the whispers of ancient power. Ashveil's gaze remained fixed on Saint Saturn, probing, calculating, as though weighing the very essence of truth from the trembling man's words. The elder's breaths came in shallow gasps, each one a reminder of how close he had come to death. He realized then that nothing, no rank, no title, no history, could shield him from the will of someone like Ashveil. Ashveil finally extended a hand, not in mercy, but in quiet dominance, as if inviting the elder to speak the truths he had so long buried. The silence stretched, heavy with tension, broken only by the faint cracking of ice melting on the ground. Saint Saturn's voice quivered, almost a whisper now.
She.
Ashveil's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Chapter 152, The True Sovereign.
I say.
Saint Saturn's trembling voice faltered as his eyes darted toward Thorn Ashveil. Unease clouded his aged features. At that same moment, within the sacred halls of the Holy Land Mary Jihuai's, home of the celestial dragons, an ominous aura filled a throne room draped in gold and silence. Upon a grand throne sat a woman whose gaze could pierce the soul. Her eyes, similar to Dracul Mihawk's but sharper, slowly opened, releasing an icy pressure that caused the entire palace to quiver.
The Gorosei.
Imu muttered, her tone frigid and venomous.
They've failed me, and now they dare betray me.
Her fury rippled through the room.
Damn it!
The outburst sent a tremor through the air, the impact shattering glass and shaking the marble beneath her feet. Servants and steel-armored guards immediately dropped to their knees, their heads pressed low, trembling in terror. Imu's slender fingers clenched the armrest of her throne, her voice dripping with rage.
How dare they betray me? They have no right to live.
As her words echoed, a tall figure stepped out from the shadows, a man in his early 30s, his expression sharp, his aura like a blade honed to perfection. His very presence radiated killing intent. He knelt before Imu, lowering his head with reverence.
Imu-sama, the Gorosei have rebelled. Do you require me to execute them?
This was the Sword Saint, known among the celestial dragons as their most gifted warrior, a man whose swordsmanship rivaled even the greatest masters of the world. Imu's anger simmered as she regarded him. After a long moment, she spoke coldly.
No.
The Sword Saint bowed his head even lower, his voice filled with reluctant respect.
Yes, great Imu. Even I with all my strength cannot defeat him.
He performed the ancient celestial dragon salute before stepping back.
You may leave.
Imu commanded, her tone slicing through the air like a knife.
As for those pests, see that they are executed at once.
The veins on her forehead stood out, her fury unrestrained. It was clear she was enraged that Saturn had dared to speak of her abilities before Ashveil. As the Sword Saint exited the hall, the golden doors shut behind him with a heavy thud. Imu leaned back into her throne, closing her eyes once more. The entire palace seemed to darken with a suffocating presence, as though the air itself feared her wrath. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Saint Saturn struggled to continue his confession.
Imu-sama's ability is.
Before he could finish, a sudden sound escaped his throat, a wet, violent puff. A burst of purple blood splattered from his mouth. His eyes widened in horror as veins bulged across his face.
Imu!
His voice broke as his body convulsed. In a terrifying display, his own hands rose against him, clutching his neck, strangling himself as if controlled by an unseen force.
Kill me!
The man's desperate plea was cut short as black veins crawled up from his legs, spreading rapidly. His body began to dissolve into black smoke, his flesh evaporating under some unseen curse. Moments later, he fell from the sky, his form half melted, screaming as he tumbled through the clouds, trailing black mist. His cries echoed through the air until finally they faded into silence. He was dead. Watching the gruesome spectacle, even Thorn Ashveil's expression hardened.
So Emu did that.
He muttered quietly.
To kill her servant from across the sea.
The method of death was horrifyingly unique, an invisible force, executed from afar, defying all logic. It seemed Emu's abilities were even more mysterious and fearsome than he had imagined. Cruel and merciless, to erase a loyal subordinate in such a way proved just how dangerous she truly was. As he considered this, an ancient voice suddenly rolled across the sky, shaking the air itself. It was neither male nor female, a tone that seemed eternal, transcending the boundaries of life and death.
Thorn Ashveil.
The voice echoed, vast and cold.
Your existence excites me.
800 years.
It continued, dripping with amusement.
And finally, someone worthy of my attention appears.
Ashveil raised his head, eyes narrowing. Her voice carried effortlessly across 10,000 kilometers from the Holy Land to his location on the battlefield. The sound resonated like a divine command. Even the sea breeze trembled. All across the Grand Line, the world stopped to listen. On the deck of the Moby Dick, the Whitebeard pirates froze mid-battle, their gazes turning skyward. Marco frowned deeply.
That voice.
The thought alone sent chills down his spine.
This person, who is it?
Whitebeard's expression darkened.
It must be her.
He rumbled, his voice grave.
Emu.
The crew exchanged uneasy looks, their usual confidence giving way to dread.
So there really is an immortal monster, ruling from the shadows.
Murmured Jazu, his fists tightening.
And how can someone speak across the entire ocean like that?
Another pirate muttered, trembling.
What kind of power is that?
Chapter 153, 153, System Rewards, 28 days ago. Chapter 153, System Rewards.
Now I'm growing more and more interested in you, Emu.
Ashveil said, a faint smile curving his lips.
The
The aged voice echoed through the void, cold and mocking.
Brat, do you truly believe that just because you defeated those pests, you now stand on equal ground with me?
Emu's tone dripped with ancient disdain.
Let me tell you the truth. In my eyes, those 5 old fools are nothing more than decrepit dogs. Were it not for their age and history, I'd have slain them long ago.
Emu's laughter faded, replaced by a sinister calm.
Wait patiently, Ashveil, you're still not qualified to face me. I'll send someone to end your life, the strongest among my bloodline. Do not mistake him for those 5 old dogs. And good luck to you.
Emu added, his voice twisting with malice.
Cherish your time while it lasts.
Ashveil chuckled softly.
Then I'll look forward to his arrival. I hope he comes quickly, otherwise I'll die of boredom.
His tone carried an easy confidence, unaffected by Emu's threats. Moments later, the communication ended, and silence swallowed the world once more. Ashveil exhaled slowly, a faint gleam flickering in his eyes.
Interesting.
He murmured. He hadn't known of this celestial dragon from the manga, but it hardly mattered. With his Haki, he feared no opponent. Looking around, Ashveil scratched his head in mild amusement. The entire battlefield had been reduced to desolation. His last attack had shattered the sea and sky alike. Nearby islands were nothing but drifting ash, swallowed by the horizon. A massive crater yawned deep within the ocean, swallowing torrents of water and lowering the sea level itself. Even the clouds above had been completely erased by the energy ripple. The heavens were bare, washed clean of all trace of life.
Good thing this happened over the ocean.
He muttered.
If it had been on land, the world map might have needed an update.
Just then, a familiar sound rang in his mind. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for defeating the World Allied Forces, the Gorosei, Kong, Garp, Sengoku, Kaido, Big Mom.
Perfect.
He said under his breath.
Now let's see how strong this so-called strongest celestial dragon really is.
Without a true life-or-death battle, the world would never grasp how far he'd risen. For now, however, one problem remained: the unconscious remnants of the United Army. Tens of thousands of bodies littered the ruins, most still breathing but motionless under the crushing weight of his Haki. As Ashveil sighed in mild annoyance, a familiar ship approached, the Moby Dick. The Whitebeard pirates had arrived.
Ashveil, Ashveil.
Marco shouted excitedly from the bow, waving both arms. His voice was full of awe and relief. Ashveil's grin widened.
Well, that saves me the trouble.
The Whitebeard pirates quickly disembarked, surrounding him with wide-eyed admiration. Marco practically sparkled with enthusiasm.
Ashveil, you're unbelievable.
He said,
To think that so many legendary figures could all fall before you.
Fire Fist Ace joined in, his flames flickering along his arm.
Yeah, even monsters like the Gorosei couldn't stand against you. Aside from that old phantom, there's no one left who can challenge you.
At that moment, Whitebeard himself strode to the front of the deck, Murakumajiri resting over his shoulder. His booming laugh shook the air.
Gururararara, Ashveil, you've outdone yourself again. Even I, the man once called the world's strongest, might not last half a strike against you now.
Before Ashveil could respond, a sharp clack echoed against the deck. Dracul Mihawk had leapt ashore, eyes gleaming with anticipation.
Ashveil,
Mihawk said, voice low and steady.
what was that sword technique you used earlier? Its power was.
Ashveil rubbed the bridge of his nose, feigning exasperation.
You sword fanatics never give up, huh? Fine, Mihawk, I'll tell you.
Everyone blinked in disbelief. Ashveil agreeing so easily, something was off. Sure enough, the grin that followed was sly and knowing.
But
Ashveil added, turning to face the assembled pirates.
you all have to clean up this mess first.
A heavy silence followed. Around them stretched endless devastation. Tens of thousands sprawled unconscious, the wreckage of an entire army. The Whitebeard crew groaned inwardly.
So that's his plan.
Marco muttered.
He just wants free labor.
Even Whitebeard couldn't help laughing.
Gururararara, still the same as ever.
Mihawk, however, remained unbothered.
If I do it,
He said seriously.
will you really teach me that technique?
Ashveil chuckled and patted Mihawk's shoulder.
Then work hard, Mihawk. I'll be watching.
With that, he turned, leaping lightly onto the Moby Dick's deck. His golden aura shimmered faintly around him as he walked toward his cabin.
I'm too tired after that battle.
He said lazily.
Wake me when the cleanup's done.
Everyone watched him go. Whitebeard shook his head with a small, knowing smile.
That guy.
Marco sighed.
Too tired, he says. He wiped out the entire United Army with one attack.
Jazu crossed his arms.
Honestly, I think we're more exhausted just watching him.
Ace laughed, shaking his head.
Yeah, that's Ashveil for you.
Chapter 154, The Gifts of Respect.
Pops, what do you want to do with these people?
Marco asked, glancing toward the sea where the remnants of the United Army struggled amid the waves. Whitebeard's expression was somber as he looked out at the chaos.
Save whoever can still be saved. Once we pull those small fries out, we'll let them go. The Whitebeard pirates have no use for a prison that large.
He paused, watching the countless unconscious figures floating on the ocean's surface, and his brow furrowed. The sight reminded him again of Ashveil's overwhelming power. Just one man, one strike, and tens of thousands had fallen. Even Edward Newgate himself, with all his might, could not have done such a thing in 3 days and nights.
As for the important ones,
His finger lifted slightly, pointing toward the Gorosei, Kong, Garp, Sengoku, Kaido, and Big Mom.
let Ashveil handle them personally.
Whitebeard said in a low, commanding voice. Marco nodded.
Understood.
The Whitebeard pirates roared in unison, diving into the sea to haul up survivors as the sun sank lower, painting the waves crimson. Meanwhile, deep within the island fortress, Thorn Ashveil returned to his quarters. Without even bothering to remove his coat, he dropped onto his bed and exhaled deeply. He didn't even eat dinner. The exhaustion from the battle had taken its toll, and he slept straight through until morning. When he finally opened the door, the first thing he saw was Boa Hancock waiting patiently outside, her posture elegant but eager.
Ashveil Sama, you're awake. I came to clean your room.
She said, her tone a mix of excitement and reverence. Behind her stood Yuruj, his arms laden with trays of steaming food-roasted chicken, sausages, fresh bread, and bottles of fine wine.
Lord Ashveil,
Yuruj said, bowing slightly.
you didn't eat yesterday. I prepared these dishes myself. Please enjoy them.
Ashveil gave a faint nod, a satisfied gleam in his eyes. Yuruj said, bowing slightly, you didn't eat yesterday. I prepared these dishes myself. Please enjoy them. Ashveil gave a faint nod, a satisfied gleam in his eyes. Good work, bring them in. Compared to the hollow smiles of hotel attendants, their respect felt genuine. They weren't serving out of duty or fear, they truly revered him. The two entered quietly. Hancock immediately took up her cleaning tools, moving gracefully as she swept and dusted every corner. Yuruj, meanwhile, looked around the room uncertainly. Lord Ashveil, he asked carefully.
May I place the food on your table?
Ashveil tilted his head slightly. The only table in the room was his gaming desk, cluttered with various devices.
That's fine, put it there.
Even spoken casually, his tone carried an unshakable authority, a king's presence that tolerated no questioning. As Yuruj arranged the dishes, Ashveil leaned back, scratching the back of his head. The dorm felt smaller now. It had been enough when all he played were console games, but after Caesar had built him a custom computer 2 days ago, space was running short. The machine wasn't connected to any network yet, but it could run massive, high-quality games that consoles couldn't handle. He smirked faintly,
Caesar really outdid himself this time.
but his thoughts soon drifted to two other figures, Golden Lion Shiki and former Admiral Zephyr. Hadn't they promised to bring him manga and other gifts? He had been too drained yesterday to think about them.
Yuruj,
Ashveil said suddenly.
What's the status of Shiki and Zephyr? They were captured by the world government, weren't they? My attack didn't.
Yuruj straightened immediately.
reporting, Lord Ashveil both have been rescued by the Whitebeard pirates. Oh,
Ashveil asked, amused.
they're outside then. I'm still waiting for those gifts. Yes, Lord Ashveil.
Yuruj confirmed. They wanted to see you yesterday, but we didn't allow anyone to disturb your rest. Ashveil chuckled.
Heh, looks like they've learned their lesson.
Yuruj puffed out his chest.
Of course, your display of power yesterday shocked the entire world. They wouldn't dare act recklessly again.
He wasn't exaggerating. Yesterday, Ashveil had done what no one in recorded history had ever achieved, obliterating the entire United Army, the Marine Forces, 2 Emperor crews, and even the direct troops of the Celestial Dragons and Gorosei. He had surpassed the Pirate King.
And the gifts, have they prepared them? They have, my lord.
Yuruj replied at once.
They prepared them long ago, but the Marines captured them before they could deliver them. They told me yesterday that the gifts are ready and will present them the moment you wish to meet.
Ashveil leaned back, satisfied.
Good, if their offerings meet my expectations, I'll accept their allegiance.
Yuruj bowed deeply.
At once, my lord.
He turned and left swiftly, heading to the great hall where guests were being received. There, Shiki and Zephyr had been waiting for hours. The moment they saw Yuruj, they rushed toward him.
How is it, Yuruj? What did Ashveil say?
Shiki asked impatiently. They had learned their place. None dared to see Ashveil without permission. Even for them, once titans of the seas protocol had to be followed. Yuruj, brimming with pride, let them wait a beat before replying.
Lord Ashveil has agreed to see you, if your gifts are satisfactory.
Zephyr exhaled in visible relief, while Shiki grinned, his eyes gleaming with restrained excitement.
That's all I needed to hear. Wait until he sees what I've brought.
The Golden Lion said, laughter booming across the hall. Yuruj crossed his arms, smirking inwardly. For years, his name had meant little among pirates or marines, but now, standing under Ashveil's banner, even legends sought his approval. He straightened his shoulders, pride swelling in his chest.
Then prepare yourselves.
He said calmly.
Lord Ashveil doesn't entertain fools.
Chapter 155, Golden Lion Shiki's Temper.
Don't worry.
Urush said seriously, puffing his chest as if the responsibility of divine diplomacy rested on his shoulders.
Thanks to me, Lord Ashveil initially didn't want to see you too because of your.
His eyes narrowed.
Your gifts must be perfectly prepared. Not a single mistake is allowed.
Shiki and Zephyr both broke into relieved grins.
Ha ha ha, Urush, we really owe you one.
Shiki said, patting his shoulder.
If Ashveil accepts us, I'll treat you to the best feast the New World has ever seen.
The two men looked giddy with anticipation, barely able to contain their excitement. Of course, the gifts they spoke of weren't ordinary. They included rare manga collections and modified game consoles that Ashveil loved. The Whitebeard pirates had already secured the rest of the treasures from the United Army the day before. Those were trophies for the crew. But these... He muttered, yawning.
I still haven't seen what Shiki and Zephyr brought.
He slipped on his sandals and strolled toward the Whitebeard pirates' main hall. When the doors swung open, every head in the room turned. The casual sight of Ashveil in loose clothes and slippers somehow exuded more presence than an admiral in full regalia. Golden Lion, Shiki, and Zephyr immediately straightened, stepping forward with eager smiles. They had once stood at the peak of their respective worlds, one a terror of the seas, the other a legendary marine hero, but in front of Ashveil, they looked like subordinates awaiting their commander's approval.
Ashveil-san,
Shiki said first, forcing a laugh that barely masked his nerves.
you've finally come. Ha ha ha, as promised, we've prepared the gifts we discussed.
The once-proud lion of the seas now bowed slightly, his trademark arrogance replaced by cautious reverence. Doflamingo, who stood nearby, could hardly believe his eyes. The last time Shiki had visited, he'd been as insolent as ever, bragging, challenging, even clashing briefly with Whitebeard's commanders. Now the same man acted like a tamed beast. What had Ashveil done to him? Doflamingo couldn't decide whether to be terrified or impressed. Even Whitebeard himself, the strongest man in the world, was taken aback. He and Shiki were once rivals on par with Pirate King Roger. For someone of Shiki's pride to lower himself like this.
Ashveil, you've finally come out. These are the gifts we've prepared for you. We hope you'll accept them with a smile.
He bowed deeply, his words steady, his demeanor that of a man addressing a superior officer. Everyone in the hall watched in silence, expecting Ashveil to acknowledge them, perhaps even announce their acceptance into his ranks. Instead, Ashveil only tilted his head and replied lazily. He rubbed his stomach and gave a small sigh.
But right now I'm hungry. Food first.
Without another word, he waved a hand dismissively and walked straight past the two men toward the kitchen. The entire hall froze. Even Whitebeard blinked. Ashveil hadn't even looked at them. Golden Lion, Shiki, and Zephyr legends, whose names once shook the seas, were completely ignored like background extras in a play. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Murmured one of the Whitebeard commanders.
He just walked right past them.
Another pirate whispered back.
Yeah.
Whitebeard frowned. He knew Zephyr's temperament. The former admiral was patient enough not to take offense, but Shiki was a different story. The Golden Lion's temper was infamous. Even a perceived slight could trigger a violent storm. Worried, Whitebeard approached Shiki cautiously and patted his shoulder.
Hey Shiki, you should know by now Ashveil's like that. Don't take it to heart.
Everyone held their breath, expecting an explosion of rage. But instead, Shiki turned toward Whitebeard and burst into hearty laughter.
Ha 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 ha, Whitebeard, you old fool, have you gone senile? Why would I be angry?
His laughter filled the hall, his grin wide and bright.
You heard him, didn't you? He agreed. Agreed.
Whitebeard repeated, bewildered.
Of course.
Shiki said, his eyes gleaming with excitement.
He said it himself depends on your gifts. That means there's a chance. Once he finishes eating, he'll see them, and if he likes them.
He clenched his fists, practically trembling with anticipation.
It'll be the greatest honor of my life.
The hall went silent again, but this time from sheer disbelief. The once arrogant Golden Lion Shiki was smiling like a loyal disciple awaiting praise. Even Zephyr, though annoyed, couldn't help but be impressed. He had known many powerful men in his life, but none who could make Shiki act like this. Whitebeard chuckled softly and shook his head.
Ha, seems like even the strongest lions bow to the king.
Chapter 156, Consoles and Discs. After everyone finished eating, Ashveil leaned back, rubbing his stomach with a satisfied sigh.
Hey, you two.
He said lazily.
Didn't you mention something about gifts? Hurry up and bring them out. I've got things to do and games to play.
He waved his hand dismissively, his tone carrying no trace of formality.
Yes, Ashveil-san.
Golden Lion Shiki and the former Admiral Zephyr immediately perked up, their faces lighting with excitement. Without hesitation, both men dashed out to retrieve their offerings. Ashveil yawned, watching them leave. Less than a minute later, they returned, panting and sweating, each carrying a large package as if their lives depended on it.
All right, Shiki, you first.
Ashveil said, crossing his arms.
Let's see if your gift can catch my interest.
Golden Lion Shiki swallowed hard, his heart hammered in his chest. This was the moment that would decide his fate. He knelt and opened his package carefully. Inside were several game consoles, stacks of game discs, and a few comic collections from the North Blue, the most famous among them being those featuring Germa 66.
How is it, Ashveil-san?
Shiki asked, his voice trembling slightly.
Do you find these acceptable?
His expression was filled with anxious hope. Ashveil gave the contents a casual glance. He said thoughtfully.
But I already have a computer now. The consoles aren't really that appealing anymore.
That single statement made Shiki's blood run cold. What? His expression froze as panic clawed at his chest. Was this rejection? Could he really be that unlucky? Just a few days ago, Ashveil had mentioned that he wanted game consoles to pass the time, and now.
All right.
He said finally.
I'll take a look at your game discs. I might not need more consoles, but I'm still short on discs.
Hope flared instantly in Shiki's eyes. He had gone through incredible lengths to collect these. He'd used his devil fruit to kidnap the kings of 2 kingdoms just to get a few rare discs. That had, of course, drawn the attention of the world government. Garp, Kong, and several vice admirals had personally led the pursuit that forced him into hiding. Now, holding his breath, he watched as Ashveil picked up the discs and turned toward his quarters. The others followed, eager to see whether Shiki would succeed in earning Ashveil's acknowledgement. Inside, Ashveil inserted the discs one by one into his console, playing each for a few minutes. With his experience, he could quickly gauge their quality. Most were mediocre, nothing special compared to the technology of his previous life. The graphics were rough, the mechanics clunky. Then he slid in the final disc. A familiar tune echoed through the speakers, and a spark of recognition flashed in his eyes.
Wait!
He murmured, leaning forward. Could it be? He said finally, I'll take a look at your game discs. I might not need more consoles, but I'm still short on discs. Hope flared instantly in Shiki's eyes. He had gone through incredible lengths to collect these. He'd used his devil fruit to kidnap the kings of 2 kingdoms just to get a few rare discs. That had, of course, drawn the attention of the world government. Garp, Kong, and several vice admirals had personally led the pursuit that forced him into hiding. Now, holding his breath, he watched as Ashveil picked up the discs and turned toward his quarters. The others followed, eager to see whether Shiki would succeed in earning Ashveil's acknowledgement. Inside, Ashveil inserted the discs one by one into his console, playing each for a few minutes. With his experience, he could quickly gauge their quality. Most were mediocre, nothing special compared to the technology of his previous life. The graphics were rough, the mechanics clunky. Then he slid in the final disc. A familiar tune echoed through the speakers, and a spark of recognition flashed in his eyes. Wait.
I've played most of these before, but seeing them again isn't bad. From now on, you're part of the Whitebeard pirates under my 0 division.
For a moment, silence hung in the room. Then, Shiki's face erupted into pure joy. The golden lion who once terrified the seas now looked like an overgrown child who'd just been praised by his hero.
Magnificent, truly magnificent.
He exclaimed, almost trembling.
It's my greatest honor to serve under you, Ashveil Sama. I'll help you conquer the world if you wish.
Ashveil waved him off.
Conquering the world?
He snorted.
Not interested. If those fools at the world government hadn't broken their word and come after me, I wouldn't even bother holding territory.
Shiki's excitement dimmed slightly, but he still nodded furiously, grateful just to have been accepted. Beside him, Zephyr shifted uncomfortably. Shiki had succeeded. If he failed now, it would be humiliating.
Ashveil-san,
Zephyr began quickly.
you've already seen Shiki's offering. Please allow me to present mine.
Ashveil turned toward him, his tone calm.
All right, let's see if you brought anything worthwhile.
Zephyr's lips twitched, but he forced a smile. Deep down, he felt confident. He had gone to Germa 66 himself and obtained something their scientists claimed was special an accessory meant to enhance computer connectivity. He opened his package, revealing a neat assortment of items, a few comic books, some den mushy, and several small tools. Ashveil glanced at them without much interest, until two sleek, silver cables caught his attention. He reached for them, his eyes narrowing slightly. He muttered. The texture, the connectors, they were nearly identical to the network cables from his old world. Ashveil's interest sharpened.
These.
Chapter 157, The Net of Innovation.
Zephyr, you old man, where did you get all these things? And what exactly are they for?
Ashveil asked, tilting his head curiously. Zephyr's heart raced. He had feared that Ashveil might dismiss his efforts, that all the careful planning and expensive acquisitions would be for nothing. Yet, seeing Ashveil's mild interest filled him with relief.
Ha, reporting, Ashveil-san, these are to be used with a computer.
Zephyr said respectfully, bowing slightly. Ashveil's eyes flicked toward the items, the spark of curiosity immediately igniting.
I don't know the name of this device.
Zephyr continued, his voice steady but full of pride.
But its purpose is to link multiple computers so that several people can play games simultaneously. I obtained it from Germa. It's a newly developed item. If you don't mind, Mr. Ashveil, you can name it yourself.
Ashveil leaned forward, examining the cables carefully. If installed on his computer, he could use them to play some of the more complex single-player games in conjunction with others. Of course, fully online gameplay was impossible, as this world had no internet yet. The potential was clear.
Let's call this a net cable.
Ashveil said indifferently, setting the cables down in front of him.
And?
He added, eyes narrowing with curiosity.
Do you think you can bring them to me?
The thought of accessing minds capable of such innovation excited him. Zephyr's excitement soared.
In that case, Ashveil-san.
Ashveil nodded slowly, a satisfied smile crossing his face.
Naturally, I'm genuinely impressed with what you've brought me.
Relief washed over Zephyr. He even shook hands with Golden Lion Shiki beside him.
Ha, Shiki, did you hear that? I passed. We're on the same team now. From this moment we'll both serve under Ashveil, ha.
Shiki laughed along, though his grin was still tinged with the residual anxiety of having waited for Ashveil's judgment. Ashveil smirked faintly.
There is one more condition, Zephyr. You must bring the person who made this net cable to me.
Zephyr blinked, but excitement quickly overcame any annoyance. Who could resist the opportunity to serve Ashveil and witness the potential of their work being appreciated?
Ha, Ashveil-san, don't worry. You'll have them and their entire team ready. They're willing to dedicate themselves to your technological research indefinitely.
Zephyr said, enthusiasm bubbling in his voice. Ashveil nodded with approval. He was already imagining the possibilities. These Germa scientists from North Blue had been known for their technological prowess, specializing in human modifications and advanced equipment. While their combat strength did not rival the Yonko, their innovation could dominate regions. Apart from the world-renowned genius Vegapunk, Germa's technology was unparalleled. With Ashveil's silent approval, the Germa team filed into the room one by one, their combat suits gleaming under the cabin lights. They bowed deeply in a display of exaggerated humility.
Ashveil-sama, thank you for accepting us. We will dedicate ourselves to developing games and advancing technology under your command.
Their loyalty was not empty words. Their past service had been conditional and opportunistic, but recent events had forced them to seek stronger protection. Big Mom and Kaido's combined assault had weakened their defenses, revealing that Big Mom's marriage alliance had been a sham. She had sought to seize control of their kingdom and monopolize their technology. With Cake Island's forces depleted, they had seized the opportunity to plunder resources overnight. North Blue was no longer safe. They needed a patron strong enough to command the seas, someone whose power could protect them from both pirates and the world government. Ashveil was their only choice. Fortune smiled on them. They had encountered Zephyr in search of game consoles, and naturally, they had followed him to Ashveil. The young pirate's fascination with high technology had sealed their fate. Now they presented themselves with utmost humility, though Ashveil merely waved a hand.
In my world,
He said,
there's no need for formalities. Focus on creating, developing, and improving games for me. That is all I require.
The Germa team straightened, pride and determination settling on their faces. They understood that under Ashveil, their talents would find true purpose. Ashveil walked among them, his sharp gaze inspecting each individual briefly. Then he paused, his attention returning to the net cables.
However,
He murmured thoughtfully,
I want them improved, optimized, and expanded. If possible, I'd like them to evolve into something even more powerful, something that could form the foundation of an entire gaming network in this world.
A murmur of excitement passed through the Germa team. They had been challenged before, but never with such opportunity. This was no ordinary patron. It was someone who understood both strategy and innovation, someone whose vision surpassed the simple pursuit of treasure or territory. Ashveil's mind worked quickly, analyzing potential applications. He could use the cables to coordinate complex simulations, battle exercises, and even construct controlled environments for combat training. These technologies could revolutionize the Whitebeard pirates' approach to everything from logistics to strategy. Zephyr, standing beside Ashveil, felt pride swell in his chest. He had managed to impress the man who had crushed fleets and armies alike, and now his own knowledge and connections would serve under Ashveil's command.
Ashveil-sama,
Judge said humbly.
we will dedicate ourselves entirely.
Ashveil nodded, satisfied.
Good, then get to work. Show me what your minds are capable of.
Chapter 158, Payment for Freedom. The Germa team's eyes widened in astonishment. Ashveil clearly knew much more about their technology than they had anticipated. They could hardly believe that he understood the intricacies of such complex inventions, and yet here he was, effortlessly discussing them.
You can continue to improve these, turning them into what I'll call a net cable. With this network, computers across the world could be connected to play games together.
Ashveil explained calmly, though the idea was extraordinary. The Whitebeard pirates were left dumbfounded. Ashveil's imagination was staggering. He was even envisioning a worldwide network for shared gameplay. Yet the practicality of such an endeavor would require immense manpower and resources. All eyes naturally turned toward the Germa team and the other scientists nearby. Caesar, standing nearby, could hardly contain his excitement. As a mad scientist, he had toyed with similar ideas before but lacked the resources to make it happen. The world had little interest in such frivolities. Power and devil fruits dominated attention, leaving little room for extravagant technological pursuits. And yet now, hearing Ashveil articulate this vision so clearly, even he felt a spark of genuine excitement. The Germa engineers and researchers exchanged glances. Their work on network cables had always been limited to experimental connections between machines, yet Ashveil's simple statement had opened a new door in their minds. Why had they not considered it before? Perhaps, they realized, a wireless network could one day connect computers worldwide. Ashveil's intelligence was exceptional. One brief comment from him had illuminated a path to breakthrough that had eluded them for years.
Yes, Ashveil-sama.
The Germa engineers said eagerly, one by one.
Your suggestion enlightens us greatly. We will continue to develop this along the path you have indicated.
Caesar, still processing the implications, stepped forward.
However, this net cable system will require immense manpower and material resources. Without adequate support for experimentation, it would be incredibly difficult to develop fully.
He warned. The Germa engineers nodded in agreement. Resources had always been their limiting factor. While their technology was impressive, rebuilding a massive laboratory after leaving North Blue was not feasible with their remaining equipment. They needed support manpower, materials, and a safe base of operations. Ashveil's lips curved into a lazy, knowing smile.
Manpower and resources, you say? Don't worry about that. Haven't we got some on hand?
He glanced at Whitebeard and the others, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Diamond Jazu stepped forward, nodding.
Our prison is small. This time we captured about 2,000 prisoners, and as for high-ranking officials, they've all been arrested and are under our control. Perfect!
Ashveil said with a slight smile.
We can interrogate them now. Bring them all to me.
Under Ashveil's command, the greatest figures of the seas were bound and escorted before him. Kaido, Big Mom, Kong, Garp, Sengoku, and even the elders were all present, powerless under his authority. Kaido of the Beasts, one of the four emperors, was the first to approach. His massive frame was tense, and the scars marking half of his face still reflected the aftermath of Ashveil's previous attack. Terror flitted across his features as he gazed upon the young pirate.
Ashveil!
Kaido stammered, unease creeping into his voice. Ashveil's gaze was calm as he regarded him.
So, Kaido, shall we make a deal? A deal? What kind of deal?
Kaido asked warily, his instinct sensing danger.
Nothing complicated. Do you wish to leave this place?
Ashveil asked casually, almost smiling. Kaido hesitated. Death was not his concern, but imprisonment at the hands of the Whitebeard pirates meant losing his most treasured possession, freedom. The loss of liberty was more agonizing to him than the threat of death itself. Naturally, he longed to leave.
Don't jest, Ashveil. You wouldn't truly release me.
Kaido said, suspicion and pride mingling in his voice. Ashveil chuckled softly.
You've been my enemy numerous times, Kaido. Yet you do not pose a threat to me now. Even if I were asleep and unguarded, could you harm me?
Kaido's expression turned red with frustration and disbelief. He realized the harsh truth. Ashveil's defense and capabilities were so extreme that no amount of brute strength could overcome them. Not even a coalition of peerless powerhouses could hope to breach him. For a moment, Kaido reconsidered everything. Even his legendary crew, his terrifying allies, and the resurrection of Rock's warriors would likely be insufficient to match Ashveil's abilities. Here stood a force beyond reckoning, capable of neutralizing any opponent with ease. Gritting his teeth, Kaido asked,
Then,
Ashveil's voice was calm, almost indifferent.
100 billion berries will suffice.
Chapter 159, The Cost of Submission. Kaido of the Beasts seethed with fury, his rage so intense that he could barely keep his composure. 100 billion berries.
please.
Kaido said, his tone pleading, his pride swallowed by the desperate hope that Ashveil might reconsider. Ashveil's lips curled into a faint smile.
You have a point, Kaido. After all, you are one of the four emperors, and your personal fortune cannot compare to the world government's wealth.
He said, spreading his hands casually. Kaido allowed himself a small sigh of relief, thinking, good, perhaps this will be negotiable. He had expected Ashveil to be harsh and unyielding, yet so far, the young pirate seemed approachable. But the relief was short-lived. The next words from Ashveil struck Kaido like a thunderbolt.
How about this, Kaido? I see you're in a tight spot, so I'll give you a discount. 90 billion berries will do. The remaining 1 billion.
Kaido's jaw nearly dropped. Ashveil's calm tone made it even worse.
What do you think, Kaido? Isn't this generous? I've just saved you 10 billion berries.
Ashveil added, a subtle smirk playing at the corner of his lips.
If that's not enough, I can adjust it further.
The smile widened, almost cruelly, as he looked at the towering emperor. A trickle of blood ran from Kaido's mouth. He had only asked for a small reduction, yet the demands Ashveil laid before him had escalated far beyond his expectations.
No!
Kaido choked out, his pride shattered, forcing an agonized grin onto his face. Every word from Ashveil gnawed at him. 10 billion saved, yet a staggering 90 billion still owed, along with laborers, sea stone, and weapons. Inside, Kaido seethed. He cursed at himself for believing Ashveil might show leniency. The young pirate's calm demeanor, his teasing smile, and the ease with which he extracted promises, it all reminded Kaido that this was a game he could not win. Ashveil, noting Kaido's resignation, allowed himself a faint, satisfied smile. This is exactly how it should be, he thought. A lesson in humility and negotiation. Even the strongest must bow to intellect and strategy.
See, Kaido, you've gained a lot by keeping your life. Look at that mouth of yours, bleeding already. Stay here too long, neglect your health, and I doubt you'll survive the ordeal intact.
Ashveil teased, his voice light yet cutting. Kaido had no words. His mouth bled from the stress and fury, and he realized he had been completely outmaneuvered. Ashveil's so-called leniency was nothing more than calculated cruelty. Ashveil's reputation for being impossible to negotiate with was confirmed. Kaido now hated himself for believing in any mercy, and yet, outwardly, he forced a grotesque smile, knowing that any display of weakness might invite further demands. Bankruptcy loomed for Wano country if he defied Ashveil's orders. Ashveil feigned a casual shrug.
Ah, you're not asking for more? Such a pity I had more plans. But very well, let's proceed with this arrangement.
Of course, Ashveil had no intention of simply releasing Kaido immediately. The beast's pirates would remain in captivity until every condition was fulfilled. Only then would Kaido regain his freedom. From Kaido's ranks, King was selected. He had survived the previous battle, though his leg had been broken by Ashveil's attack. Kaido's trusted confidant, this unusual creature had escaped from the Celestial Dragon's laboratory alongside him. Under Kaido's orders, he was sent to fulfill the demands, the sea stone, laborers, and weapons promised to the Whitebeard pirates. Only upon completion of these tasks would Kaido be released.
Next, let the Charlotte family meet me.
Ashveil said indifferently, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. The sun shone brightly overhead, yet Ashveil showed no desire to avoid its glare. He would personally oversee the interrogation of these infamous criminals, ensuring every word and action was measured. Big Mom approached, her towering presence imposing, yet unlike Kaido, she displayed an unusual humility in Ashveil's presence.
Ashveil, if you grant me freedom, I will provide the resources you request. Just tell me what you need, and I will comply fully.
Chapter 160, Shiryu's Treasure.
You are quite perceptive, Big Mom.
Ashveil said casually.
Considering this is your first offense, a compensation of 80 billion berries will suffice.
Ashveil added, his tone measured and indifferent. Big Mom's mouth twitched at the figure, but she had no choice. In this situation, she was the fish and Ashveil was the butcher. Resistance was futile.
All right, Ashveil, I agree.
Big Mom said readily, swallowing her pride. She had initially thought of bargaining like Kaido, but recalling Kaido's miserable fate, she chose compliance over confrontation. The third prisoner called forward was Shiryu. Ashveil's lips curved into a faint, mocking smile as he regarded him.
Shiryu of the Rain, I once saved your life. And what? You attempted to attack me. Isn't that a bit?
Ashveil said, toying absent-mindedly with a wine glass. Shiryu's eyes flickered with a calculating glint.
Ashveil-sama, you said that as long as we helped you complete the Marineford mission, we would be even. I trust a hero of your caliber wouldn't speak lightly, would you?
His words carried subtle psychological precision, aimed at testing Ashveil's reactions. The Whitebeard pirates nearby frowned. Shiryu of the Rain had always excelled at bending reason to his advantage. Doflamingo's veins bulged, and he clenched his fists in irritation.
Shiryu of the Rain, what do you mean by this? If you keep provoking, I'll kill you myself.
He growled. Empress Hancock, too, looked upon Shiryu with disgust, astounded that such a shameless man existed. Ashveil, however, burst into laughter, calm yet filled with amusement.
You're correct, Shiryu of the Rain. I did say that before.
Ashveil admitted, chuckling lightly. His laughter, measured and genuine, diffused the tension, demonstrating that even the ungrateful might receive mercy under his authority. Shiryu's confidence swelled. In the world of powerful figures, reputation and judgment were everything. Even Ashveil, remarkable as he was, had his evaluations to maintain. Shiryu's survival hinged on this subtle truth.
However,
Ashveil continued with a faint smile.
Even if I hadn't saved you back then, you still participated in my punitive war. That alone warrants punishment.
Shiryu's relief was palpable. For him, wealth was secondary to life itself. Survival was paramount, and he had no qualms about surrendering treasure to ensure it.
I can give you all my possessions, Ashveil-sama. I've hidden my treasures in a remote town. Here is the map. Send anyone and they will find it.
Shiryu said sincerely, a subtle smile forming on his lips. Ashveil's expression remained indifferent.
And what value do you assign to these treasures?
Do not worry, Ashveil-sama.
Shiryu replied, earnest and unwavering.
All are priceless. Among them are 3 devil fruits as well. Combined, they are worth at least 100 billion berries.
His voice rang loud enough for all present to hear, carrying a confidence born from experience. Those around him were stunned. Shiryu of the Rain had always operated alone, a lone wolf unlike the organized Shichibukai or other major pirates. For him to command such a wealth independently was astounding. Encouraged by the reactions, Shiryu's confidence deepened. His life was undoubtedly secure now.
100 billion berries. That will suffice, Shiryu of the Rain. I originally intended to request only 50 billion.
Ashveil said, his tone calm and measured. Shiryu's lips curled in a mixture of relief and amusement.
As long as it pleases you, I can offer the full 100 billion berries.
He had wrought destruction across hundreds of cities for this sum, but his life was infinitely more valuable. Survival outweighed all else. Shiryu had already resolved that after his release, he would abandon participation in major conflicts. He would remain a lone wolf, free to live as he pleased, striking when opportunity favored him. Such freedom, unbound by loyalty or obligation, suited him well. Respectfully, he produced the treasure map and handed it to Ashveil. Ashveil's eyes flickered with mild amusement as he examined it.
Understand your position, Shiryu. Never dare deceive me.
Ashveil warned, his gaze sharp yet measured. Shiryu hastily bowed.
You have my word, Ashveil-sama. Not only are these treasures yours, but even the devil fruits are at your disposal.
Ashveil's lip curled slightly.
I do not anticipate deceit from you, scoundrel. I will take this map.
Relieved, Shiryu returned toward his cell, awaiting Ashveil's verification. His release was now only a matter of time. Yet as he took a step, Ashveil's lazy voice stopped him.
However,
Ashveil said, lips curving into a small smile. Shiryu froze, confusion etching his features. Not over yet, he thought. He had delivered the map, surely that was enough. Ashveil's next words softened his confusion.
Oh, it's nothing serious. I'm merely curious. Where did you acquire so many treasures?
Shiryu's heart steadied. Ah.
Ashveil-sama, the treasures were gathered over years of careful planning, strategic raids, and the occasional fortunate acquisition. Each piece represents a risk and a triumph.
Ashveil nodded slowly, his gaze sharp and calculating.
Interesting, a man of foresight and patience. That explains your survival and the magnitude of your hoard.
Chapter 161, Golden Judgment.
It's nothing, just plundered from a few towns. For pirates, this is a normal affair.
Shiryu of the Rain said, his tone indifferent. Doflamingo frowned. He had plundered on a grand scale himself before becoming a Shichibukai, but he had never amassed this much treasure so quickly. Shiryu of the Rain's haul could only be explained by collusion with the world government and an indiscriminate massacre of townsfolk. Without such extreme measures, Shiryu could never have gathered such a fortune in so short a time.
I see.
Ashveil said, voice calm, almost casual. A dazzling golden light erupted on his finger. It was the fusion of his golden Conqueror's Haki and the glint fruit ability. Shiryu felt sweat bead on his forehead, each drop like a small marble under the weight of Ashveil's presence.
Mr. Ashveil.
Shiryu stammered, desperate. He assumed Ashveil's fury was directed at the authenticity of the map. After all, he had risked life and limb to plunder it. He hadn't deceived anyone.
A treasure map.
Ashveil said calmly, yet the golden glow in his hand intensified.
Then what does that mean?
Shiryu asked, confusion and fear battling across his face. Kaido himself had defied Ashveil repeatedly, yet only lost money, never his life. Why was this different? Ashveil stepped closer, deliberate and unhurried.
Do I need to remind you?
He asked, the faintest chill threading through his words.
Remind me.
Shiryu blinked. Back then, Ashveil had released him from Impel Down, warning that any freed criminals must never harm humanity. At the time, Shiryu had scoffed, but now the warning weighed heavily on him. Could there truly be someone in this world willing to punish the powerful for the sake of ordinary people?
Please.
Shiryu pleaded, panicked. The nearby Whitebeard pirates exchanged skeptical glances. Could a man like this truly belong among them?
Ashveil, don't let him join. He's like Blackbeard, dangerous, untrustworthy.
Fire Fist Ace growled, remembering past betrayals. Ashveil looked at Shiryu, expression neutral, almost amused.
Insignificant.
Shiryu sank to his knees, desperation plain.
Yes, Captain Ashveil, you're right. I'm insignificant, incapable of causing harm.
The others, however, murmured in anger. Shiryu reminded them too much of Blackbeard.
Kill him.
Some cried.
Don't let this ungrateful fool survive.
Ashveil smiled faintly. The golden light in his hand flared brighter.
Don't worry, I keep my word. Since he broke the promise I granted in Impel Down, he deserves punishment.
Ashveil said, voice measured. The pirates watched, awe and fear mingling. Shiryu had overplayed his hand. Ashveil's judgment was swift and absolute. In an instant, the golden beam of Haki and light shot toward Shiryu. His pupils dilated in horror as the light closed in. In a desperate reflex, Shiryu drew his famed sword and braced for impact. Ashveil's expression remained unflinching. The combined power of his golden conqueror's Haki and glint fruit ability was beyond any mortal blade. The beam struck, a thunderous explosion of energy erupted. Smoke cleared and Shiryu still stood, holding his sword. The Whitebeard pirates gasped. Had he blocked it?
No.
Ace's roar cut through the confusion.
He didn't, the sword.
Chapter 162, The Price of Defeat. At first, the spared lives of Kaido of the Beasts and Big Mom brought a flicker of relief to many. Even stripped of their territories and treasures, survival alone was something. But after witnessing Shiryu of the Rain's fate, relief gave way to utter terror. One by one, the Marines and commanders began questioning their past decisions, wondering if a single misstep could now cost them their lives. Kong, Sengoku, the admirals, Garp, Vice Admiral Tsuru, and others approached Ashveil with cautious steps, hearts pounding with fear. Even Vice Admiral Jin, experiencing such a cataclysmic display for the first time, found her knees trembling beneath her. Ashveil smiled faintly as he surveyed them.
Don't worry, I am not a cold-blooded demon.
He said lightly, a faint grin on his face.
The only reason Shiryu met his end was to fulfill a promise.
They nodded awkwardly, yet deep down, everyone understood the chilling truth. Ashveil was still, in every sense, a force of sheer devastation. As expected, he continued.
If you wish to leave here alive, each of you will pay 50 billion berries.
Ashveil said smoothly, his gaze unyielding. A stunned silence fell. The sum was astronomical. While 50 billion berries might not terrify a pirate, for disciplined Marines unable to plunder freely, it was almost inconceivable. Sengoku bowed his head, visibly restrained. He never imagined that he, a dignified fleet admiral, would fail twice against the same opponent. Humiliation, territorial cessions, and reparations now awaited him. Sengoku asked, voice tight with caution. Ashveil considered this briefly. He said with a shrug.
But 100 million berries per minute for the call.
The shock was immediate. 100 million berries per minute for a phone call? It was audacious, absurd, but no one dared show anything but a forced composure. Any slip could spell instant death. Sengoku's clenched jaw betrayed his frustration, but he forced a smile.
Very well, Ashveil, 100 million berries per minute. Please connect me to headquarters.
He said cautiously. On the other end, a rear admiral answered, unaware that the entire world allied forces had just been routed.
Such a vast sum.
The rear admiral said, brows knitting.
According to protocol, a transfer of this scale would require Commander Kong's approval.
Just then Kong's voice came through, calm yet strained.
This is Kong. I was also detained in this battle.
He admitted, his aged face flushing.
I officially approve transferring the funds to Ashveil.
The Rear Admiral blinked. Kong Sama, Fleet Admiral and commander of the three forces, had been captured by Ashveil. Even now, he lacked the authority to authorize such transfers. The Rear Admiral stammered.
Since you have all been detained, I cannot authorize this transfer alone. I must forward the matter to the Gorosei. They will handle it.
Most of World Headquarters combat forces had been deployed to fight Ashveil, leaving only Rear Admirals at the helm. An aged, commanding voice interrupted.
This is Mars.
The voice said, deep and authoritative.
All of us, the Gorosei, except me, are dead. As the highest authority of the world government, I permit you to compensate Ashveil.
The Rear Admiral's hands shook. Only one Gorosei remained alive, and even he had been captured. The world government was an empty shell.
Are you still standing there?
St. Mars demanded.
Hurry and hand over the berries. My life depends on it.
Yes, Gorosei-sama.
The Rear Admiral cried, fear and urgency evident.
I'll notify the finance department immediately.
St. Mars exhaled slowly, a hint of relief passing over him. At least some order remained at World Headquarters, otherwise even reparations could not be executed. Just then, the sound of distant roars echoed from the battlefield. The Rear Admiral, glancing at the monitors, gasped.
Reporting, Gorosei-sama, a situation has arisen. The Revolutionary Army they have attacked, and World Headquarters is already half occupied.
Chapter 163, A Price Beyond Measure. Facing such a catastrophic event, the Rear Admiral, a mere small soldier, naturally had no authority to dictate actions. He hastily asked for guidance before the Gorosei could hang up. The elder of the five elders, St. Mars, felt his chest tighten. He had never expected the Revolutionary Army to exploit this chaos. There was no room for hesitation. The remaining personnel were far too weak to resist the Revolutionary Army. Even his own survival was uncertain, let alone maintaining control over the world government. Despair gripped St. Mars.
First, remain calm. Select the highest-ranking officer among you to take full command.
St. Mars instructed urgently.
The guy from Impeldown is a good choice. Follow his orders and resist the Revolutionary Army together.
The Marine elites around him exchanged uneasy glances. How could they be expected to save World Headquarters when they barely had the strength to save themselves? And didn't Ashveil already make it clear? A single minute of phone calls cost 100 million berries. Kong, sensing the chaos, nudged St. Mars, silently reminding him that the pressing matter of ransom remained unresolved. As long as they survived and returned to World Headquarters, the Revolutionary Army's interference could be managed later. St. Mars snapped back to the pressing issue.
The most important task is to secure every possible way to redeem us. Gather a substantial ransom immediately. Do you understand?
He barked. But just then, a piercing scream echoed through the comms. As the Rear Admiral reported, the Revolutionary Army had charged. An arrow imbued with armament Haki struck him squarely in the neck, and he collapsed unconscious.
Wait, finish my orders first, finish my orders.
St. Mars shouted, panic edging his voice. The surrounding Marine officers looked on in helpless disbelief. No one had expected such a sudden, violent disruption. The ransom might be lost, entirely seized by the Revolutionary Army. Ashveil watched from a distance, his expression one of mild amusement. The Revolutionary Army's move was unexpected but irrelevant to him. He had his own business to attend to.
Hey, forget about the ransom for now. 1 minute of phone calls costs 100 million berries. You've used 5 minutes, so that's 500 million berries.
Ashveil said, stepping forward and holding out his palm. Sweat poured from St. Mars's forehead. Never had he been forced to pay such a sum directly, like an imperial decree written in real time. St. Mars stammered, desperation evident. Ashveil's golden gaze pierced him.
Repay me, your world headquarters is collapsing. What capital do you have to repay me? I want it now. If you can't pay, you can go join Shiryu underground.
Ashveil said, smiling faintly, the threat unmistakable. St. Mars's mind raced. He, a revered member of the Gorosei, was now scrambling to produce 500 million berries like a frightened bureaucrat. He cast a pleading glance at the marine officers around him. As fellow captives, they were under no obligation to aid him. Without their cooperation, the ransom could not be assembled. Fleet Admiral Sengoku felt a surge of dark amusement. To think the Gorosei, who had reprimanded him countless times, would now be begging for help was an unexpected turn of fate.
We should gather the funds for the Elder first.
Kong suggested.
The Revolutionary Army's attack can be managed later. Let's pay the phone bill first, then handle the rest.
Chapter 164, The Revolutionary Surge. Sabo swung his steel pipe with relentless force.
Dragon Claw!
He roared, his hands turning pitch black as he gripped a rear admiral, rendering him unconscious in an instant. Ivankov's eyes gleamed with fury. A death wink unleashed from his gaze exploded like a bomb, scattering dozens of Marines across the battlefield. And Revolutionary Army Dragon was even more terrifying. Each of his strides shook the earth, his aura pressing down like a storm as he advanced toward the World Government World Headquarters. Anyone nearby was overwhelmed before even approaching him, collapsing unconscious from sheer terror. Dark clouds gathered above as Dragon's presence warped the weather. Torrential rain hammered the grounds, while fierce winds whipped through the streets, scattering anyone who dared remain in the open. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating Dragon's face and revealing a tattoo that ran across half his visage, lending him an even more ferocious appearance.
Sabo, our main battlefield isn't here. Holy Land Mary Jihuai's is the priority.
Dragon muttered, voice firm with authority. Under his command, the Revolutionary Army surged forward, disciplined and relentless. A female commander waved her military flag, inspiring the troops further. In less than 5 minutes, the world headquarters was turned upside down. Without pause, the Revolutionary Army charged toward Holy Land Mary Jihuai's. The celestial dragons within the Holy Land immediately sensed the threat.
This is outrageous. How dare these inferior humans rebel?
One shrieked.
Pathetic low-class humans, attacking us while our forces are diminished.
Another spat.
But the Gorosei aren't here. Can we rely on the guards alone to protect us?
Panic spread across the group as fear clouded their usually imperious demeanor. Without the Gorosei, could their guards really fend off the Revolutionary Army? Were they to be enslaved by humans, the descendants of mere mortals?
Why don't we just flee to Fishman Island? With enough wealth, survival shouldn't be difficult.
One obese celestial dragon suggested, drool dripping down his chin.
You fool, Fishman Island is under that bastard's control. Going there is suicide. That place is far worse than the Revolutionary Army.
Another snapped, silencing the ridiculous notion. At that moment, a voice of ancient authority echoed through the halls.
You fools, what are you panicking for? Holy Land Mary Jihuai's isn't so easily conquered.
The voice intoned. Even the most haughty celestial dragons fell to their knees in fear. The speaker was none other than Imu, their supreme ancestor. The intelligence officer at World Headquarters froze, eyes wide. This was unlike anything he had witnessed. His instinct urged him to call the Gorosei, but he remembered the headquarters was already overrun.
It's over,
he muttered under his breath, heart pounding. Even during the Whitebeard pirates' attacks, though Marineford was devastated, no one dared topple the world government. Yet now, with pirates, Revolutionary Army forces, and other factions converging, it seemed inevitable. The officer's hands trembled as he realized that loyalty to the world government offered him nothing. With the Gorosei absent, survival demanded self-preservation. He turned to flee. In his haste, he collided with a burly man and fell to the ground. The figure standing over him appeared to be in his 30s, long hair flowing, a white sword strapped to his back, his face marked with scars. His attire was neither Marine nor Revolutionary Army. It was unfamiliar, a newcomer.
Who?
The officer stammered, scrambling to his feet.
Run, the Revolutionary Army has already taken world headquarters, and their next target is Holy Land Marigiois.
Chapter 165, The Holy Sword Unleashed.
You foolish Marines, I warned you long ago, the Marines are completely unreliable.
The man with the massive white sword strapped to his back sneered, his face a mask of disdain. The intelligence officer hesitated, wanting to argue, but with Revolutionary Army soldiers swarming everywhere, confronting this man would be fatal. Even a moment of defiance could mean instant death.
I've warned you, yet you refuse to listen. Don't blame me, my life is my priority.
The officer shouted, then fled. He had only taken 2 steps when a blinding white light appeared. A swift slash cut through the air, instantly bisecting the officer. A scream tore through the corridors, accompanied by a spray of blood, horrifying in its intensity. The man holding the sword remained expressionless, unshaken.
HMPH, accept the baptism of my sword of justice. To fall by my blade is a blessing you earned in your life.
The sword-wielding figure declared coldly. Without another glance, he advanced into the depths of the world headquarters. His long hair flowed as the sword saint touched the hilt of the blade on his back, the holy sword, a weapon designed to slay evil and absorb the strength of the dead. Its craftsmanship surpassed even the first-generation kaitsu blades, and coupled with centuries of experience and the eternal surgical enhancements from the previous Opope no Mi user, this 300-year-old warrior was nearly immortal, rivaled only by Imu herself. He was Imu's personal bodyguard, the most formidable individual in the world besides her. Thump, thump, thump. Amidst the storm and chaos, the sword saint walked with unyielding purpose. A squad of Revolutionary Army soldiers noticed him, and, recognizing he was not one of their own, charged. The sword saint barely reacted, lips curling in a faint smirk.
Just a bunch of small fry trying to stop me.
He muttered. Then a terrifying roar echoed. A surge of Conqueror's Haki emanated from him, instantaneously spreading in all directions. The charging soldiers froze mid-step, eyes wide, their bodies paralyzed as the Haki washed over them. Blood began to seep from their orifices as the sword saint continued forward, utterly undisturbed. Even Revolutionary Army Dragon, Sabo, and Ivankov felt the overwhelming presence of the Haki.
Did you feel that, Sabo?
Ivankov asked, astonished.
Even you noticed it, yes.
Sabo replied, skeptical. He had seen many Haki users, but none could unleash such a rapid, concentrated burst capable of freezing hundreds in an instant.
This is extraordinary, the technique, its precision.
Dragon said gravely, eyes narrowing. Facing this power, even he, once the world's most dangerous criminal, felt a rare sense of caution.
Let's go, all of us.
Dragon commanded, and the Revolutionary Army surged forward again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They surrounded the sword saint, but he walked calmly, excitement glimmering in his eyes.
You are worthy to become the departed souls beneath my holy sword. Accept its baptism.
He declared, raising the blade high. A blinding light erupted, as radiant as the sun, forcing all observers to shield their eyes.
Unbelievable.
Dragon muttered, awe and concern mixing in his tone. He could sense the ancient power radiating from the holy sword, a lifespan far beyond human limits.
That must be Imu, the god of this world. Imu!
The sword saint's lips quirked in surprise.
No.
He laughed, the sound echoing through the battlefield. Confused glances were cast at him, and his expression turned serious.
I am not Imu. Her strength surpasses mine by far. I am merely her bodyguard.
He clarified, disdain flickering across his features. Even so, the aura he exuded was enough to command respect and fear. Revolutionary Army Dragon's face darkened, his own mastery of Haki, a defining aspect of his fearsome reputation, paled in comparison.
Everyone remain vigilant. Even if he is not Imu, his Haki is stronger than mine.
Chapter 166, The Sword Saint. In an instant, Sword Saint Bickley unleashed a heaven-shattering slash toward the crow in front of him. The force of the strike pierced the sky, sending a wave of sword intent that disintegrated the dense black crows in an instant, leaving only a mist of blood. Crows fell from the sky one by one, their remains staining the ground. The Northern Army commander, Crow, wiped sweat from his forehead. The combat power of the man before him was staggering. The slash he had just executed was indisputably superior even to the world's greatest swordsman, Haki. Beyond the collapsing illusion of the crows, volleys of fire cannonballs rained down on Bickley. He curled his lips in a faint smirk, disdain evident in his expression.
You revolutionary army, before Ashveil appeared, you were deemed the world government's most wanted. Is this truly all the skill you possess? Attempting to defeat me with such petty tricks is laughable.
Bickley said with icy contempt. His body glowed faintly with armament Haki, allowing him to take the full brunt of the cannon fire without raising his sword. Volleys exploded against him, producing smoke and fire, yet not a scratch appeared on him. The Southern District commander's frown deepened. These bombs were Tech Number 8, created through advanced experimentation. Even if they couldn't harm Bickley, they should have at least forced him into defense. Yet his abnormal resilience rendered them useless.
Do not underestimate us, Sword Saint.
Sabo suddenly appeared in the sky, his iron staff turning pitch black, swinging it with lethal precision. Bickley did not draw his holy sword. With a calm, effortless motion, he blocked the strike with his left arm. Boom! The collision sent a shockwave through the air. Sabo's eyes widened in disbelief. His dragon fist-enhanced attack was easily repelled. Worse, the Sword Saint moved with such ease, revealing he had not even exerted his full strength. In an instant, Bickley exerted a measured counterforce from his arm, unleashing a terrifying power that sent Sabo flying backward despite his aerial advantage.
Your martial arts are decent, kid, but still insufficient.
Bickley remarked, his calm expression unshaken. Before the stalemate could continue, two more forces approached, their presence amplified by a crimson glow. Ivankov and Revolutionary Army Dragon surged forward simultaneously. Ivankov, having enhanced his strength with a dose of special medicine, launched a death wink, his legs a blur of deadly power. The attack struck Bickley's left arm, yet the Sword Saint's armament Haki manifested as a sacred white aura, barely holding the strike at bay. Then came Dragon.
Well done!
Dragon shouted. The previous attacks, though seemingly insignificant, had forced the Sword Saint into using one arm plus Haki, destabilizing his aura slightly. Dragon seized this opening, channeling his power into a devastating close-range strike. Dark clouds blanketed the sky, lightning danced across his body, and his fist became a spinning whirlwind, a level 20 tornado infused with devil fruit power, capable of tearing apart anything in its path.
This is Dragon's ultimate move. Countless peerless warriors have fallen to this technique.
Chapter 167, The Sword Saint's Wrath. The Revolutionary Army advancing nearby froze in shock, witnessing the scene above. They knew full well that in such violent weather, Dragon had begun to take the fight seriously. At the world headquarters weren't the only defenders a few vice admirals, and they had already been swept aside by the Revolutionary Army. Then who had appeared here, forcing Dragon to exert such effort? Batches of Revolutionary Army soldiers cautiously advanced toward the battlefield. Thump, thump, thump.
Over at the world headquarters, our leader must have encountered a terrifying enemy. Urgent support, urgent support,
shouted the man at the front, straining to be heard. Dragon, hovering in the sky, sensed their movements and bellowed.
Do not let the army intervene. This battle is beyond their control.
The South Army commander on the ground regained his composure, pulling a flare-like device from his mechanical backpack and launching it into the sky. Boom! A fiery dragon erupted, a signal recognized instantly by the marching soldiers. They stopped and even retreated several hundred meters, understanding Dragon's warning.
This time, Dragon-san is facing a formidable opponent. We would only be in the way,
murmured the Revolutionary Army soldiers, eyes fixed on the battle. Above the battlefield, Sword Saint Bickley's eyes burned with fury at Dragon's mention of the Revolutionary Army.
I say, Dragon, even now you're thinking about your troops. You know too little about my terror. A man who cannot even protect himself should not pretend to be a hero.
He shouted. The holy sword in his hand roared to life.
Holy sword!
The blade's brilliance doubled, sending dazzling white light cascading across the battlefield. Dragon's previously unyielding aura began to waver beneath the oppressive holy light. Around him, onlookers gaped at the vast radiance filling the sky. This was not Dragon's doing. Dragon was being suppressed. The Revolutionary Army soldiers below swallowed hard. Whoever could suppress Dragon in such a manner, could it truly be Emu? They realized the battle had escalated far beyond their expectations. Now, all they could do was hope Dragon would prevail. Only his victory could secure humanity's future in this fight. Meanwhile, Dragon's body strained under the assault of the holy sword. The light was not mere sword intent, it carried an unknown energy that seeped into his body, causing intense pain as if his bones might shatter. The East Army commander noticed this and waved her military flag. Streams of blue-green light surged toward Dragon, easing his agony and accelerating his recovery. The Sword Saint furrowed his brow. This East Army commander was not trivial, he could even temporarily heal internal damage caused by the Holy Sword. Sabo, Ivankov, Crow, and the South Army commander could not remain idle. They attacked in unison, determined to protect Dragon. Flocks of crows, artillery fire, and one death wink after another rained down upon the Sword Saint. Sabo unleashed a dragon-shaped armament Haki wave, cutting through the sky. Bickley, sensing the attacks with observation Haki, frowned.
You are annoyingly persistent.
He muttered. He opened his left hand, and a four-directional Conqueror's Haki barrier materialized, neutralizing every attack with explosive precision. The friction from the assault heated the air, yet each flame vanished upon touching the Haki barrier. Spectators on the ground watched in disbelief. The Sword Saint casually deflected attack after attack, displaying strength that rivaled the legendary Night Feather, known to the world as the Devil Ashveil.
This man has mastered Conqueror's Haki control, just like Ashveil.
Sabo whispered, shock evident in his voice. The air above the battlefield trembled. A low hum resonated from the holy sword, vibrating through the atmosphere like the heartbeat of a god. Even the clouds seemed to shiver, casting eerie shadows across the land. Dragon steadied himself, gathering every ounce of willpower. His eyes glimmered with determination, yet the Sword Saint's overwhelming aura pressed him back, testing the limits of his endurance. Bickley tilted his head, an unsettling smile spreading across his face.
Ugh!
Chapter 168, The Sword Saint's Divine Barrier. Sabo had long idolized Ashveil, and the man before them had mastered his idol's method of controlling Conqueror's Haki, leaving Sabo momentarily speechless. Ivankov, Crow, and the other Revolutionary Army members were equally stunned. The sheer power displayed by the Sword Saint far surpassed anything they had imagined. The mastery over Conqueror's Haki, akin to Ashveil's, left everyone solemn, their expressions heavy with unease.
If he wields Ashveil's strength,
Crow muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. Dragon seized an opening during his allies' attack, disengaging from the Sword Saint. Using Moonwalk, he retreated several steps, creating distance while keeping his eyes narrowed. The man before him clearly shared the same precise control over Conqueror's Haki as Ashveil.
he's a formidable opponent. Time to implement Plan B.
Dragon said, his brow furrowed. The Revolutionary Army had long prepared contingency plans for Emu, and Plan B was among them. That Dragon was willing to apply a strategy designed for Emu against the Sword Saint revealed how much he valued him as a warrior. The Sword Saint responded with disdain, a playful smirk curving his lips.
Show me everything you've got, then.
Even the Revolutionary Army, the most formidable organization the world government feared, seemed fragile in his presence. The Sword Saint had barely tapped 30% of his power in the battle so far.
Do not underestimate us. The Revolutionary Army's teamwork fears no force in this world.
Crow roared, his body fracturing into countless crows that swarmed in all directions.
Another illusion, how tedious.
The Sword Saint remarked. His holy sword glowed brightly as armament Haki surged along its blade. With a swing, he struck at the ground forces. Boom! A sky-shattering blow erupted. The crows turned into pools of blood, cannons fired, but even their combined explosions could not hinder the sword's path. Dragon and his allies escalated their offensive. Two rapidly spinning tornadoes appeared in Dragon's hands, crackling with lightning.
Go, only a fully powered strike can break his shield.
Dragon roared, sending the tornadoes surging toward the Sword Saint. Sabo and the South Army commander unleashed streams of armament Haki Ryu, which merged into the tornadoes, distorting space itself. Cracks appeared in the air as reality seemed to strain against the assault. The East Army commander waved her flag, channeling lightning through it. The energy fused with Dragon's attacks, forming a devastating barrage rivaling even the combined forces of the Marines, Kaido, and Big Mom during the Marineford War. The Sword Saint frowned. Even as the strongest being after Imu in centuries, he acknowledged the severity of the coordinated assault.
You brats, I recognize your strength,
He said, his eyes hardening. He swung the holy sword heavily, but instead of a destructive slash, a soft, radiant light emerged. It combined with his Conqueror's Haki to form a square barrier before his chest. The attacks that collided with it were absorbed and nullified. Confidence radiated from him.
My Conqueror's Haki defense surpasses that brat's.
He said,
I can withstand any attack. Infused with the Holy Sword's divine power, no force in this world can breach it. This is a higher level than Ashveil's absolute defense.
It was clear why the Sword Saint had pledged lifelong loyalty to Imu. The Holy Sword, a relic bestowed by Imu herself, had once been claimed from a demon she defeated before the celestial dragons even rose to power. A weapon of this caliber was unrivaled, even supreme-grade swords could not compare. Through this sword, the Sword Saint had maintained his dominance for 8 centuries, second only to Imu. Countless peerless foes had fallen before him in her name, his skill and weapon making him a living legend. Even now, as the attacks rained upon him, the Sword Saint's barrier emitted a soft hum, the sound reverberating like the voice of an ancient deity. The very air around him thickened, shimmering with divine energy, warning all who dared approach. Below, the Revolutionary Army soldiers felt the oppressive presence of the barrier. It was as if time itself slowed near him, every movement becoming a struggle against an unseen weight pressing down. Sabo gritted his teeth.
No matter how strong we are,
Ivankov's eyes widened.
he isn't just defending.
Chapter 169, An Overwhelming Might. Whenever an overwhelmingly powerful individual appeared that the world government could not handle, Imu's personal bodyguard would intervene to neutralize the threat. To keep the existence and abilities of the celestial dragons, Imu, and the Sword Saint secret, the world government concealed everything meticulously. Consequently, only a handful of high-ranking officials knew of Imu and the Sword Saint's true abilities. Most of these legendary figures were buried by history, disappearing into the long river of time. Over centuries, the Sword Saint, wielding the Holy Sword, had slain countless peerless opponents. Even legends like Roger and Rox had not earned his attention. Facing the Revolutionary Army, the Sword Saint had deliberately held back, never unleashing his average strength.
Everyone who has glimpsed my true power has perished.
The Sword Saint said coldly, a hint of disdain curling his lip. The Revolutionary Army's expressions darkened. They knew the devastation their attacks could wreak, yet under the Sword Saint's strange ability, their strikes seemed as if they had never existed. Any attack that entered his barrier vanished completely, leaving no trace. As the Revolutionary Army struggled to process this, the Sword Saint raised his holy sword. A blinding white light erupted, radiating an overwhelming presence.
Be careful, he's about to attack again.
Dragon shouted. Dragon summoned a whirlwind infused with armament Haki and launched it toward the Sword Saint.
You really don't stop, do you?
The Sword Saint said, his patience waning. He drew in energy from his surroundings, causing the holy sword to glow brighter than ever. Objects nearby seemed to converge toward the radiant blade.
Go!
He shouted, releasing a strike at the Revolutionary Army below. In an instant, a colossal slash capable of reaching 10,000 meters surged forward. The ground erupted upon impact, splitting apart with a deafening roar. Dust and debris filled the air, and a massive fissure stretched endlessly, a bottomless chasm carved by the holy sword.
HMPH.
The sword saint said disdainfully. Reinserting his holy sword, he prepared to descend, but suddenly a flock of crows appeared behind him. The sword saint's brow lifted in surprise. Crow had been obliterated by one of his earlier strikes. Why had he reappeared? It mattered little. Such an attack was insignificant, incapable of harming him. He readied another strike, but his hand was suddenly seized by an impossibly dark dragon claw. The crows reverted into Revolutionary Army members. Sabo, with armament Haki maximized, had transformed his palm into the shape of a dragon claw, gripping the sword saint firmly. Ivankov struck with a kick from her black high-heeled shoe, a sharp black arc slicing through the air to collide with the sword saint's other arm. Even with Crow's devil fruit ability and the sudden transformation of the team, the sword saint reacted with lightning speed, defending against the unexpected assault. Yet 4 hands were more than 2 fists, and Revolutionary Army Dragon prepared his attack.
Sword Saint, we've analyzed your ability. Your holy sword is powerful and your barrier repels attacks, but it cannot defend from behind. Your defense isn't 360 degrees like Night Feathers, and you rely too much on your weapon. This strike will end you, originally meant for Emu, but now it's your turn.
Chapter 170, The Sword Saint's True Form. Deep beneath the earth, the Sword Saint endured relentless punishment. His internal organs churned violently, and even the protection of the Holy Sword could not prevent a torrent of blood from spilling forth under the successive assaults. Sizzle.
Why does it sound like the earth itself is corroding? Dragon, is this part of your ability?
Sabo asked, suspicion in his voice. He wondered if Dragon had secretly imbued the Dragon Fist with some hidden power, adding a unique destructive effect to their coordinated assault. Dragon's serious expression softened slightly. He recalled what his father, Garp, had once said: among the celestial dragons, only Emu and her direct descendants possessed the purest blood, a vibrant purple, capable of corroding all things. For such a sound to manifest, their strategy had worked.
This,
Dragon explained. Hearing this, the Revolutionary Army members exhaled in relief. The Sword Saint was no ordinary opponent. If they had not employed their unorthodox strategy, originally designed to counter Emu, they might have been the ones defeated. They surveyed the twisted, cracked earth, still feeling lingering fear. They had narrowly survived. One misstep and the Sword Saint's single blow could have obliterated them.
thankfully, we managed to subdue this terrifying opponent. If he had retaliated, none of us would have survived.
Ivankov said solemnly. The sheer strength of the Sword Saint had left an indelible mark on all of them.
Yet,
Sabo added, gazing toward Mary Jihuai's with a grave expression.
and
Sabo continued, analyzing the battle. As they reflected on the might of Emu's lineage, a chilling voice echoed from beneath the ground.
You lowly humans!
It was unmistakably the Sword Saint Bickley, forced underground by the Revolutionary Army's coordinated attacks. The earth trembled violently, faces turned pale as realization set in, their attacks might not have succeeded. Was the Sword Saint's defense truly that formidable? With a deafening crack, the earth split open, and the Sword Saint burst forth, holding his holy sword aloft.
You dare harm me! Die, you insolent humans!
He roared. The surrounding Revolutionary Army members stared in shock. The Sword Saint's physical transformation was astonishing. He was no longer the long-haired man in his 30s they had fought. His head had swollen, his forehead protruded menacingly, fangs bared, hair disheveled, and blue-purple blood dripped from his mouth.
the Sword Saint.
Sabo whispered, eyes wide. Ivankov's expression, accentuated by her makeup, mirrored pure disbelief. Dragon himself could hardly conceal his shock.
The Sword Saint!
Bickley's eyes grew cold, deadly with contempt.
I never imagined lowly humans could provoke my true form. Countless powerful individuals have witnessed this, and the outcome was always the same. They perished at my hand in the most humiliating ways.
Chapter 171, The Celestial Blade Descends. No matter how violent dragons' storm attacks became, they were powerless before the Sword Saint's single descending slash. The sky split apart as one tornado after another was cleaved cleanly in half. A suffocating pressure burst outward, sweeping across the battlefield. The sky, once dim and overcast, was suddenly illuminated by blinding radiance.
You insects cannot withstand my power. This is the difference between us.
Sword Saint Bickley declared with cold arrogance, his expression steeped in disdain. A devastating sword aura surged forward, dragging broken earth and debris along with it. The overwhelming pressure made even seasoned warriors freeze in fear.
It's coming. Even Dragon can't hold back that ridiculous slash.
Ivankov shouted, his eyes stretched wide with terror. If Dragon failed here, then the rest of them, alone and exhausted, stood no chance of defending themselves. Dragon's expression hardened. He turned sharply toward the forces behind him and roared.
Run! Our objective is escape. We cannot win against him.
Dragon shouted. The moment Bickley entered his transformed state, his power rose to a realm far beyond their reach. His warning jolted the fleeing Revolutionary Army members, who activated their abilities and retreated with desperate urgency. Dragon stepped forward, planting himself between them and the incoming holy slash. His arms were coated in dense, surging armament Haki, swelling with blackened muscles thick enough to dwarf his own legs. The flowing Haki around his arms writhed like living creatures. The concentrated armament Haki twisted into the shape of two dragons coiling around his forearms. With a fierce roar, Dragon thrust both arms forward. Two massive armament Haki dragons erupted from his fists, launching toward the oncoming holy dragon unleashed by Bickley. Black dragons clashed with the radiant white dragon in midair, lightning crackling violently across the sky. The difference in power was immediately clear. The white dragon's talons pierced through the black dragon's bodies, sizzling with destructive force. The black dragons groaned before dissolving entirely, yet even in death, they successfully halted the holy dragon's first advance. Bickley's lips curled.
I didn't expect you to stop my holy sword, but it's useless. Even its remaining power is more than you ants can withstand.
He sneered. The remnants of the white giant dragon surged forward once again, racing toward the fleeing revolutionary army. With a deafening roar, the holy dragon detonated upon the ground. The explosion resembled a miniature sun erupting, flooding the battlefield with blinding light and horrifying destructive energy. Dragon, standing at the front, was struck first. He activated full-body armament Haki instantly, barely keeping himself alive. Even so, the searing light tore through him, hurling him backward as blood erupted from his mouth and scattered across the burning air. Behind him, the South Army commander had already fled nearly 10,000 meters into the sky. He turned, only to see white light swallowing everything. His eyes widened. The holy light engulfed him completely. A sharp scream echoed, then his figure vanished amid exploding fuel, torn metal, and blazing fragments. Back on the ground, Ivankov and East Army Commander Betty fled as fast as shattered terrain would allow. Using powerful leaps, they covered distance rapidly, yet still far too slowly compared to the incoming slash. A brilliant flash appeared behind them, swelling outward like a second sunrise. Ivankov turned and nearly froze, his heavily made-up face contorting in horror.
So this is.
Ivankov gasped, trembling. Betty gritted her teeth, face pale but resolute. She swung her flag forward, its glow intensifying. The surrounding energy responded to her call, swirling toward the incoming holy slash. For a breath of time, the brilliance dimmed. Ivankov's eyes lit up.
You did it, Betty. You actually stopped.
Idiot.
Betty snapped, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth.
If Dragon couldn't block it, how do you expect me to? Prepare yourself.
The paused attack resumed, surging toward them with renewed speed.
What do we do? We're going to die.
Chapter 172, The Sword Saint. The Sword Saint's gaze was icy and unyielding.
Your ability is troublesome. I refuse to be restrained by it any longer.
He declared, slashing sharply at the ground. A dazzling wave of light surged forth, forming a slash over 1,000 meters long. In an instant, before anyone could react, it slammed into the earth with overwhelming force. Rumbled. The ground erupted violently, sending massive chunks of earth scattering in every direction. Revolutionary Army members leaped into the air to avoid being crushed. It was almost unthinkable that this devastation occurred within world government territory. Mori, the West Army commander, crawled from the shattered ground, his body slick with blood. He was gravely injured, teetering on the edge of death.
Mori!
The Revolutionary Army shouted in unison, horror etched on their faces. Before they could even recover, the Sword Saint moved with inhuman speed. In an instant, he appeared behind Crow, the North Army commander. His holy sword gleamed with blinding light as he slashed toward Crow.
Crow, watch out!
Dragon shouted, urgency in his voice. Betty, the East Army commander, steeled herself. She bit her lips, gathering energy through her flag, and a crimson glow flared around her. The Sword Saint's attack slowed slightly, causing a flicker of surprise to cross his face. He hadn't anticipated this resistance. The most troublesome opponent wasn't the flamboyant Ivankov, nor the ever-dangerous Crow. It was this woman standing before him. Every time he thought he had an opening, she stopped him. Truly, the Revolutionary Army's strength lay in her. Crow transformed into a massive flock of crows, attempting to evade the strike. Yet the Sword Saint's precision was absolute. His sword cut through the air, scattering the crows into a storm of feathers. The Revolutionary Army members vanished from view once again, leaving the Sword Saint hovering silently.
Just another trivial tactic.
He murmured, unconcerned.
But this time, you've miscalculated.
He added, a cold smile playing on his lips. White lightning crackled along his holy sword as he closed his eyes. In a blink, he vanished from his original position. A stream of fresh blood appeared in the sky, falling toward the ground in a horrifying display. Crow's body appeared next, electrified and trembling under the Sword Saint's lightning. He plummeted from high above, landing atop the gravely injured Mori. Both commanders were on the brink of death, unable to even cry out.
The second one is dealt with,
The Sword Saint remarked, scanning the battlefield. The remaining Revolutionary Army members Dragon, Sabo, Ivankov, Betty, and Lindbergh stood frozen, staring at him in shock. This man was terrifying. Observation Haki could not detect the presence of Crow's techniques, yet the Sword Saint possessed a sensory ability far beyond even Haki.
Quite unexpected, isn't it? This is a powerful sensory ability unique to celestial dragons, comparable to the demon race's ability to hear all things. Ordinary humans cannot perceive it.
He said, voice dripping with menace.
Yet for you inferior humans to force me into this state.
His holy sword gleamed once more. Without hesitation, he unleashed another devastating slash, tearing the sky and splitting white clouds in half. The force radiated outward, shaking the earth itself. The Revolutionary Army members felt the true weight of Sword Saint Bickley's power. His sword aura condensed into a long, white dragon, roaring as it swept toward them. Wherever it passed, the ground cracked and shattered. Sabo, Ivankov, Betty, and Lindbergh's faces reflected sheer terror. Even elite fighters like them were shaken to their core.
I've only seen this kind of attack from Ashveil on the big screens.
Ivankov exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief. Sabo, Betty, and Lindbergh swallowed nervously.
This Sword Saint slash is just as deadly as Ashveil's.
Dragon's expression darkened. Only he could confront this impossible attack. With a roar, his body tensed, muscles swelling and clothes tearing as he activated his full power. The surrounding Revolutionary Army members watched in awe for the first time. Dragon's body radiated Conqueror's Haki, his blackened hands vibrating with destructive energy. The heavens above darkened as the earth trembled. Tornadoes erupted from every direction, climbing 10,000 meters into the sky, piercing clouds and tearing at the air. Thunder rolled across the battlefield, rain pouring in a relentless torrent, dimming the world below. Sword Saint Bickley's expression twisted into one of disdain.
You inferiors!
The blinding white light intensified against the dim storm. Dragon's sweat beaded, his arms striking a unique stance. One tornado after another surged under his control, each imbued not just with armament Haki, but also Conqueror's Haki. This combination, amplified by the whirling tornadoes, made Dragon's attacks exponentially stronger, perhaps the very reason the world government feared him.
Interesting fellow.
Chapter 173, The Sword Saint Descends. Betty lifted her flag once more, sweeping it through the air. Layers of black stone walls erupted around her and Ivankov, forming a fragile barrier. It was the only defense they could muster in this desperate moment. As expected, the aftershocks of the Sword Saint's attack shattered the walls instantly, reducing the fragments to dust. In a blinding flash, both of them were consumed, disappearing without a trace. Sabo, the only one left, teetered on the edge of madness as he watched his comrades vanish. In a desperate surge, he replicated Dragon's fist technique, his arm flowing with armament Haki, forming a dragon head pattern, and he charged into the oncoming aftershocks. A roar, identical to Dragon's own, erupted from him. Boom! The force of Sabo's strike met the Holy Sword's aftershocks, producing a sharp clang as metal collided with Haki-infused energy. For a moment, the blinding light faltered under Sabo's strength, and he gasped, realizing he had momentarily withstood the attack. But the Sword Saint's assault was far from over. Light erupted from every direction again. Sabo's dragon fist had only delayed the inevitable. The Sword Saint's strike continued relentlessly, filling the battlefield with dazzling slashes from all angles. The brilliance overwhelmed Sabo's senses, blinding him completely. A deafening roar filled his head, and he collapsed to the ground, swallowed by the radiant light. The world government's headquarters seemed to vanish in that instant. Above, the Sword Saint hovered midair, sliding his holy sword back into its sheath. His grotesque visage slowly returned to its usual handsome form.
HMPH, inferior human, you remain nothing more than that. Ashveil, mark my words, today I will eliminate you.
He declared, cold fury in his voice. His battle with Dragon had been merely a warm-up. Without hesitation, a sphere of Conqueror's Haki erupted beneath his feet. The Sword Saint launched himself toward Ashveil's location with devastating speed. As Emu's lifelong guardian, his mission was singular: destroy any human who threatened her. The Whitebeard pirates were not his target, only Ashveil warranted his full wrath. Boom! Like a rocket slicing through the atmosphere, the Sword Saint left a white streak across the sky, moving at near-teleportation speed. The friction between him and the air roared across a 10-kilometer radius, forcing everyone below to look upward.
Look!
It.
Impossible!
Skepticism and awe filled the crowd. No one could comprehend a human moving faster than a meteor without being incinerated by air friction. Meanwhile, Ashveil relaxed in his dormitory, sipping red wine from Dressrosa. Beside him, Hancock carried a tray of assorted fruits, her regal presence unshaken. Yuruj stood ready for any command. The Whitebeard pirates, rich and triumphant, spent their days in leisure. Bonfires, picnics, and laughter filled their ships, while the mundane tasks of cleaning, supply, and base construction were handled by loyal subordinates. On this day, a massive roar tore through the sky. Workers paused mid-task, looking up in shock at a meteor-like figure streaking toward the Whitebeard pirates. Kaido of the Beasts and Charlotte Linlin, still stranded on Ashveil's territory, froze as construction hammers halted mid-strike.
Is that a meteor?
Linlin muttered, eyes wide.
Even in daylight, it shines that brightly.
Not just bright.
Kaido added, astonished.
It's...
Nearby, world government personnel who had failed to secure ransom watched nervously, their hearts racing at the phenomenon above.
Look, a meteor. Can I make a wish?
Iron Fist Garp chuckled, seemingly delighted. Garp, ever mischievous, seemed to thrive in this laborious environment, completely forgetting the United Army's failure. For him, work had become a form of amusement.
Garp, how can you laugh at a time like this?
Vice Admiral Tsuru snapped, covered in mud and dust, her usual composure gone. Sengoku's glasses reflected the intense light above. He narrowed his eyes, scanning the rapidly approaching object.
How?
He murmured.
Are you imagining it?
Garp asked, curious.
No, look closer.
Kong added, his expression grave.
That's no meteor. It's a human flying at incredible speed.
Chapter 174, A Meteor.
Oh, by the way, do you remember that ancient voice from the last war? It said the strongest celestial dragon in centuries would appear to kill Ashveil.
Vice Admiral Tsuru's eyes shifted as she spoke, lightly patting her head. Her words immediately silenced everyone. She was right, the prophecy existed, yet the way it manifested was beyond imagination. The sky above the Whitebeard pirates brightened intensely as the Sword Saint arrived, bathing the vast waters in blinding light. Even the pirates, feasting and laughing, turned their gaze upward in astonishment.
Look!
The Whitebeard pirates whispered urgently among themselves. The elite captains of the Whitebeard pirates rose from the deck, their expressions a mix of curiosity and tension. Marco rubbed his head, confused.
What is that exactly? It doesn't look like a shooting star, does it?
If not a shooting star.
Vista joked, unaware that his words were closer to reality than he imagined. The Sword Saint's descent was impossibly fast. In moments, he reached above the Whitebeard pirates, then plummeted toward the ground with terrifying speed.
Wait!
Doflamingo's throat tightened as he felt the overwhelming pressure. Though small in appearance, the Sword Saint carried an aura surpassing even the meteor summoned by Fujitora Issho. Empress Hancock furrowed her brows, her gaze fixed on the descending figure.
Shouldn't we do something? Otherwise, the entire Whitebeard pirates will suffer.
Her voice was firm, yet the trembling sea beneath them made her words incomplete. Doflamingo sensed the imminent danger. Veins bulging, he activated his devil fruit ability, casting a massive spider web above the fleet to absorb the impact. The Sword Saint struck like a hammer, crushing the web in an instant. Even Doflamingo, prepared with his own ability, could not withstand the overwhelming force. Threads of the web shattered immediately. Finally, the Sword Saint landed on a nearby island with a thunderous crash. The small island shattered instantly, sending earth and debris flying in all directions. The blinding light dimmed, leaving the sea trembling from the aftershock. Ashveil, comfortably inside his dormitory, frowned at the tremor.
Can a person not get some peace? Uruj, go outside and see what's happening.
Uruj, standing ready, obeyed immediately, while Ashveil remained seated, absorbed in his leisure. Outside, the Sword Saint Bickley held his holy sword, long hair flowing, revealing his handsome face. He scanned the surrounding crowd with cold interest. The people around him stared in disbelief. They had never encountered anyone like him. Emerging from the shattered island, he must be the meteor they had witnessed moments ago, a being of incredible strength. Among the onlookers were the elite captains of the Whitebeard pirates Marco, Diamond Jazu, and others as well as former Shichibukai, Don Quixote Doflamingo, Empress Hancock, Mihawk, and even high-ranking former world government officials, including Kong, Sengoku, and 2 of the Gorosei. Observing the former officials, now dressed in tattered laborer clothing, the Sword Saint's aura flared. This display of humility before an enemy enraged him. To a celestial dragon, such degradation of the ruling class was intolerable.
You disgrace the world government? If I were you, I'd die here to atone. Imu-sama will not compensate you for this incompetence, you spineless fools.
Bickley shouted, his voice echoing with authority and contempt. Vice Admirals Aramaki, Onagumo, and others, hearing this, frowned in disbelief. Who was this man, daring to speak so brazenly to the world government?
Hey you, watch your tongue. Do you even know who you're speaking to, arrogant fool?
Chapter 175, Confrontation with the Sword Saint. Just as the tension reached its peak, and everyone prepared to retaliate against Bickley, the reaction of one of the Gorosei unsettled them all.
This!
The elder stammered, mouth agape. Sword Saint. Those present turned their eyes to Bickley. The man before them no longer resembled any ordinary threat, they were filled with disbelief. His speed was unfathomable. He had arrived in moments, not by ship but by flying directly through the sky. It was beyond comprehension.
Foolish ant, how dare you embarrass Imu-sama? Just wait, Imu-sama will punish you severely.
Bickley continued, his voice sharp. The elder, despite his immense power, lowered his head in submission. he dared not show defiance. Only luck had spared him, others had already perished on the battlefield. No one could deny it, Ashveil was incomparably powerful. Without the sword Saint and Emu, no one could have possibly confronted him. The Whitebeard pirates now fully understood who stood before them. Fear and caution spread through their ranks. While little was known about the Sword Saint, it was clear his strength far surpassed the Gorosei. The conversation between Bickley and one of the strongest Gorosei left no doubt. This man was leagues above the Elder Council. Even Whitebeard, Edward Newgate himself, emerged from his quarters, observing Bickley with grave eyes. The aura surrounding him was unmistakable. Bickley had grown stronger by relentlessly defeating top-tier warriors, the kind that dominated this world. Only by doing so could one emit such a terrifying presence.
This man is not ordinary. His aura is terrifying, yet he still conceals his full power.
Whitebeard muttered solemnly. Bickley, raising his eyes slightly, sized up Whitebeard. He had heard Emu mention this man. He was said to be a peer of Gall D. Roger. Observing that Whitebeard recognized his concealed strength confirmed the man's capability. He was far stronger than most in the room.
Since you recognize my strength, surrender quickly. My mission is singular, to kill Ashveil. If you value your life, do not obstruct me.
Bickley said, his tone dripping with disdain. He drew the holy sword from his back, and a blinding light radiated from it. Even Dracul Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman, could not hide his astonishment.
This sword.
Mihawk said, eyes wide with awe. Bickley smirked faintly at Mihawk's reaction.
You have some discernment, yet I will not explain this sword's full power. Mortals cannot comprehend it.
Bickley said, his disdain lingering even as he advanced. Through his observation Haki, he had already located Ashveil inside his dormitory. Though seemingly idle, a mere slacker at leisure, Ashveil's hidden power radiated a force far greater than appearances suggested. Only a celestial dragon's unique observation Haki could detect it. Step by step, Bickley approached Ashveil's dormitory, his gaze unwavering. Suddenly, a booming voice rang out.
Hey, you made that noise just now, didn't you?
Urouge, wings spread wide, stormed toward Bickley, anger etched on his face. Mistakenly believing this swordsman to be a would-be recruit seeking favor in the New World, he did not yet realize he faced the Sword Saint. As Ashveil's first subordinate, Urouge had seen countless others approach with gifts and exaggerated respect, only to be decisively humbled by his captain. Yet this stranger wielded a massive sword, and Urouge had never encountered him. How dare such a newcomer act boldly in the presence of Ashveil? Bickley did not even glance at him. To the Sword Saint, Urouge's presence was negligible, less than an ant. His sole concern was Ashveil, his target. Urouge's indignation grew. How could this stranger, with no manners or warning, simply ignore the presence of Ashveil?
Hey, are you deaf? Do you know who I am? I am Ashveil's first subordinate. To see him, you must pass me.
Chapter 176, An Ant. The surrounding Whitebeard pirates and the captured world government personnel widened their eyes in disbelief. Could Urouge really be mistaking the Sword Saint for a pirate who had come to join Ashveil?
Hey!
Marco shouted, trying to intervene. But Urouge, still fully focused on the Sword Saint, did not even hear Marco's warnings. Bickley had reached his limit. Though Urouge was insignificant to him, less than an ant, he could not tolerate the buzzing persistence of a fly.
You foolish fool, I am the Sword Saint.
Bickley roared, fury blazing. The holy sword in his hands flared with blinding light once more. Raising it high above his head, Bickley unleashed a lethal slash towards Urouge. Urouge's eyes went wide. Wait.
This should at least delay the Sword Saint.
Mihawk murmured, eyes narrowing. A black slash, stretching 1,000 meters through the sky, rushed at Bickley with a hum of deadly precision. Bickley's eyes narrowed. A swordsman's instinct told him this attack was formidable. Mihawk, despite having only few years of training, had reached an impressive level. With the immortality granted by Emu and the Holy Sword, Bickley had achieved his terrifying strength. Yet, he could appreciate raw talent, and Mihawk's potential was undeniable.
Not a bad attack. Perhaps you would make a fine disciple.
Bickley said coldly, shifting from offense to defense. With a simple circle traced to his side, a square barrier materialized around him. Within this mystical barrier, Both Whitebeard's tremor-based assault and Mihawk's black slash were absorbed without leaving a trace, vanishing as if they had never existed. The eerie silence that followed left all onlookers stunned. Even Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, could scarcely believe his eyes. His tremor fruit, a force capable of disrupting nearly any attack, had been neutralized without resistance. Only the power of a peerless being like Ashveil, or perhaps even beyond, could achieve this. Then Bickley shifted back to offense, raising his holy sword in a sweeping backhand. His blade cut through the air, targeting Urouge with lethal intent. Urouge's face paled, veins visible across his tense features. Memories surged of his crew being annihilated by Akinu on Sabyati Archipelago. He had felt certain death then, only to be saved by the noble Ashveil, who had defeated his enemies with terrifying ease. Now history seemed to repeat itself. Could Ashveil intervene in time, or would he be finished before his captain even noticed? The radiant slash drew nearer, and the surrounding sea itself seemed to tremble. The Whitebeard pirates sprang into action. Flower Sword Vista unleashed a flurry of strikes, each one meeting Bickley's barrier and disappearing without effect. 1st Division Commander Marco followed with his blue magma, rushing at the Sword Saint's defenses. Even Doflamingo, wary of underestimating this foe, activated his Devil Fruit ability, transforming into 12 holy bullets and assaulting Bickley with precise attacks.
Such a concentrated strike from so many experts.
Chapter 177, Ashveil vs. Sword Saint 1. No matter how many attacks were launched, Sword Saint Bickley's defense absorbed them all. Dozens of assaults vanished into his mysterious barrier as if they had never existed. Dracul Mihawk's expression was grave, his hawk-like eyes fixated on the radiant holy sword.
I'm not entirely sure of the exact ability, but one thing is certain, it must be tied to that holy sword. Its power is immense.
Mihawk murmured, sensing the source of the Sword Saint's defensive technique. Edward Newgate's face mirrored Mihawk's solemnity.
His defense rivals Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki barrier. As expected, he's a master on the same level as Ashveil.
Even when the world allied forces had attacked Ashveil with their combined might, he had withstood it. But here, Bickley's shield effortlessly neutralized attacks comparable to that legendary strike. Urouge, witnessing attacks vanish beside the Sword Saint, swallowed hard. His life seemed to hang by a thread. The holy sword was barely a meter away from him, and if it advanced another step, annihilation would be instantaneous. He had already prepared himself for death. Then, golden particles swirled into a shimmering barrier, blocking the Sword Saint's path. Relief flooded Urouge as he recognized the familiar aura. It was his captain, Thorn Ashveil. He had arrived in time to prevent disaster. Sword Saint Bickley froze, his expression unusually grave. How could anyone withstand his attack? Even a master like him felt a bead of sweat forming on his brow. Only one person on this ship could oppose him, Ashveil.
Hey, who's shouting so loudly here? You almost ruined my concentration.
Ashveil said, frowning, his tone mildly annoyed. He hadn't wanted any interruptions while managing the situation. Bickley's eyes narrowed. This Ashveil was indeed formidable.
You kid!
Bickley said, his gaze piercing Ashveil. Ashveil casually stepped from his dormitory. Had Bickley not revealed his identity, it would have been difficult to distinguish him from any other swordsman attempting to follow Ashveil.
This is troublesome. If you're here to follow me, fine. But if it's someone coming to kill me, I can't ignore them.
Ashveil muttered, lightly patting his forehead.
You celestial dragons are endlessly restless. When I deal with Emu, will you finally be quiet?
He added, his tone sharp and unyielding. Bickley's face flushed crimson. In all his years, he had never encountered anyone who dared treat Emu as a weakling, much less someone who mocked the authority of the celestial dragons.
Ashveil, don't underestimate Imu-sama. How dare you judge her so casually?
Bickley roared, swinging another radiant strike. But Ashveil merely observed, intrigued. The sword in Bickley's hands was truly exceptional. Boom! Bickley's strike collided with Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki barrier. The barrier rippled under the impact, but the Sword Saint could not penetrate it. Winds howled, carrying shards of energy across the Whitebeard pirates' territory, spanning dozens of kilometers. Mihawk's eyes narrowed, excitement flickering across his face.
Thorn Ashveil.
Ashveil frowned slightly, assessing Bickley.
You really are weak, Bickley. I'll have to handle this myself. How inconvenient.
He said, his voice tinged with annoyance. Suddenly, a massive fist formed above Ashveil, forged from Conqueror's Haki and crackling with purple lightning. Bickley's expression stiffened, astonished by the fusion of Heishoku and lightning. Without pause, Ashveil's giant fist charged forward, a roar tearing from his lips. The earth beneath Bickley cracked and shifted under the overwhelming force.
Terrifying.
Bickley muttered, hastily raising his holy sword to block. He created a square barrier overhead, and the immense power vanished upon entering it, absorbed without leaving a trace. Ashveil's expression was calm, his confidence unshaken.
Ha ha ha, Bickley, didn't you boast about your overwhelming power?
He said, his tone mocking yet controlled.
What's the matter? Couldn't even breach my defense.
Chapter 178, Ashveil vs. Sword Saint 2. The surrounding crowd was stunned. Everyone knew Ashveil, whose attacks could devastate entire groups with ease, yet here he was, blocked so effortlessly by a single opponent. Diamond Jazu's face displayed disbelief.
No way.
Marco's expression mirrored Jazu's shock. Logically, no one in this world should have withstood an attack infused with Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki and Rumble fruit power, yet Bickley had done so. Hawkeye Mihawk's eyes narrowed as he studied the radiant glow of Bickley's holy sword.
It must be linked to that sword,
he said, assessing the origin of Bickley's defensive technique. Whitebeard also studied the sword saint thoughtfully. His expression showed the rare respect reserved for genuine mastery. Ashveil's Heishoku-infused punch, amplified by his Rumble powers, had been blocked without leaving a ripple, as if it had never struck.
Defensive power above mine.
Ashveil remarked, rolling his eyes, calm and unshaken.
You'll have to prove it first.
Purple lightning surged from the sky, attacking Bickley from all sides. His face twisted in pain. The holy sword could only defend in a single direction. To counter attacks from multiple angles, he had to rely solely on armament Haki. Even with his body fully blackened in Haki, the concentrated assault from Ashveil pierced through. Bickley's skeleton-like form appeared beneath the pressure, sizzling as his agonized cries echoed across the battlefield. The onlookers rubbed their eyes in disbelief. Moments ago, it had seemed Bickley held the upper hand. Now, the tide had shifted entirely. Ashveil's tactical restraint had revealed the Sword Saint's weakness, exposing him to a devastating counterattack. Ashveil stood, indifferent, observing Bickley convulsing from the Haki-charged strike.
Not bad, but your strength isn't as great as you think. And that shield.
Bickley, battered and twitching, looked up. A ferocious, elder voice then rang out across the battlefield.
Ha ha ha, as expected of you, Ashveil. You're worthy of being my opponent.
Everyone froze. The Sword Saint, who had been lying nearly lifeless moments before, now stood, purple blood streaking his body, fangs bared, exuding raw ferocity.
This.
Marco whispered, shocked.
Monster.
Jazu muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed as he assessed the transformation.
That is indeed Sword Saint Bickley.
The revelation triggered memories of Pirate King Roger. Years ago, Roger had confided that the celestial dragons were not divine beings, but a lineage with dark, corrupt bloodlines. He had warned that their pride and influence hid true malice. Looking at Bickley's distorted, furious form, Whitebeard now fully understood.
The true face of the celestial dragons.
He muttered, his disgust mirrored by Empress Hancock. Even her already low opinion of the celestial dragons deepened at this revelation. Ashveil, taken aback but maintaining his composure, waved a hand dramatically.
Hey, you may be strong, but you're not scaring me. And that face,
he said with mock exasperation. Bickley's pride flared. Humiliated, he drew his holy sword once more.
Kid, I'll show you my true strength now. I'll prove who is truly weak.
Chapter 179, Ashveil vs. Sword Saint 3.
Accept my judgment, Ashveil. I will take you and your entire Whitebeard pirates down.
Sword Saint Bickley roared from the sky. His holy sword gleamed with blinding light, growing ever brighter as he unleashed a strike aimed at Ashveil and the others below. Buzz! A tremendous aura surged outward instantly. A dazzling slash, 10,000 meters in length, appeared out of thin air, tearing through the horizon. The Whitebeard pirates looked up in terror.
Good heavens!
Don Quixote Doflamingo muttered, veins bulging on his forehead. Just months ago, he had considered himself a formidable Shichibukai. Now, facing such power, he realized he was little more than a minor character. Marco's eyes widened. Could the Zero Division captain withstand such a strike? Even he doubted it. Empress Hancock clasped her hands, praying silently. Ashveil's previous foes had been effortlessly defeated, but this Sword Saint seemed different. Sword Saint Bickley was a warrior on Ashveil's level, perhaps the only one capable of truly challenging him.
Ashveil-kun survived this.
Hancock murmured, her eyes filled with worry. Whitebeard's expression was equally grave. In this battle, they weren't just fighting another foe, they were confronting the true strength of the Celestial Dragon's enforcers. The prior battles Ashveil had faced were nothing more than skirmishes against the Celestial Dragon's pawns. Ashveil's eyes flickered, a hint of surprise crossing his face.
Looks like this Sword Saint is truly enraged by me.
He muttered with a shake of his head. Then, Golden Conqueror's Haki reappeared, denser than before. Unlike the previous thin mist, it now formed a solid, radiant barrier, as thick and impenetrable as a city wall built from golden bricks. The shield didn't just protect Ashveil, it enveloped all nearby Whitebeard pirates. Boom! The overwhelming force of Bickley's strike collided with the Golden Conqueror's Haki. Energy surged wildly along the barrier before rushing harmlessly into the sea, causing massive turbulence, explosions, and waves, yet leaving everyone behind the Haki shield completely unharmed.
No way!
Doflamingo swallowed hard. Unlike previous attacks, this strike rivaled Ashveil's own peak strength. The barrier had not only withstood it, but it had channeled all that energy safely away. The secret, they realized, wasn't the Sword Saint's power, it was that Ashveil had grown stronger. In such a short span, he had taken another step forward. Where others would hit a ceiling, Ashveil had shattered it. Watching him, everyone understood, no one else could achieve such rapid growth.
This kid!
Murmured Whitebeard, a hint of envy in his voice. Even he, the strongest man alive, could not replicate such progress so swiftly. Sword Saint Bickley's eyes widened at the sight.
Golden Conqueror's Haki.
Chapter 180, Ashveil vs. Sword Saint 4.
Kid!
Sword Saint Bickley's grotesque face twisted in a sneer as he glared at Ashveil, every word dripping with mockery.
Let me guess.
Bickley's eyes scanned Ashveil from head to toe, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. At that moment, he seemed like a master strategist, fully confident in his assessment. Ashveil, however, yawned lazily, utterly nonchalant. He even dug into his ear, showing the height of his indifference.
Sword Saint, you're amusing.
Ashveil said, flashing a row of white teeth.
It's just Golden Conqueror's Haki. Honestly, my Conqueror's Haki is limitless. I could go for eternity.
Even Ashveil had not initially realized the full magnitude of his own Haki. What he thought was only a small layer of Golden Conqueror's Haki had, by sheer instinct, manifested into something of overwhelming scale and intensity. A casual gesture from him had generated a defense comparable to city walls. The difference this time, however, was extraordinary. After unleashing such immense Haki, Ashveil felt invigorated rather than drained. His blood flowed faster, his body pulsed with energy. The breakthrough granted by the system reward had pushed his Conqueror's Haki past 10,000 points, a qualitative leap. Now his Conqueror's Haki regenerated endlessly. The power surged within him, almost urging him to release it. Bickley's eyes widened, disbelief etched across his face. Endless? Could a mere human wield such limitless Conqueror's Haki? Only the great Emu was supposed to possess this ability. Yet here stood Ashveil, proving it possible. Sword Saint Bickley's disbelief twisted into roaring laughter.
Are you joking, brat? Endless. Only the god of this world, Emu, can achieve such power.
He bellowed toward the sky, the reverence for Emu clear despite his fury.
I'll personally expose your lie, Ashveil.
Bickley's eyes blazed with renewed fighting spirit. His holy sword unleashed a roar of its own, the energy around it manifesting into a fearsome presence.
Most of your golden conquerors Haki went into defending your crew, didn't it? Let's see how you handle this.
Bickley's aura swelled to godlike proportions. With a mighty swing, his holy sword conjured a colossal white dragon, its scales gleaming like radiant metal. The dragon's eyes locked on Ashveil with unrelenting ferocity. Roar! The dragon charged at Ashveil with blinding speed, its roar shaking the very air. Lightning danced along its form, crackling with energy that warped the surrounding space. On the ground, the Whitebeard pirate stared in awe and disbelief.
What kind of attack is this? It's shaking the entire space.
Marco exclaimed. Never had he imagined that Bickley, in his transformed state, could wield such terrifying power. This attack, in their estimation, was even more formidable than the assault Ashveil had once unleashed on the world allied forces. Hawkeye Mihawk's sharp eyes gleamed.
This attack!
He began to reconsider the celestial dragon's might. They were not the weak, pampered nobles scattered across the world. Among them existed terrifying warriors with lineage and power beyond imagination. This sword saint, descended from Emu's lineage, was a force of unimaginable strength. Could Ashveil possibly falter against such an opponent? Even Mihawk, a master swordsman, felt genuine concern for Ashveil's survival.
Did he expend all his golden conquerors Haki protecting us?
Whitebeard muttered, worry etched on his face. The Whitebeard pirates exchanged grim looks. They were powerless in a battle of this scale, their fate rested entirely in Ashveil's hands. Even the world government agents in the nearby laboratory paused their work, eyes glued to the unfolding battle. If the Sword Saint prevailed, their fortunes might change. Kaido and Charlotte Linlin observed in tense silence.
Kaido, I never imagined such strength among the celestial dragons.
Linlin said, the thought of conquering the world now seemed almost impossible. To overthrow the celestial dragon's bloodline would require more than raw strength. It demanded an impossible level of power and precision. Kaido's expression hardened, recalling his own capture by the celestial dragons. The world's ruling class was far more formidable than he had ever imagined. Sengoku, too, swallowed hard. Even he had been unaware of the true magnitude of the Sword Saint's power. He had often wondered how the celestial dragons could maintain control over the world for so long. Now he understood, their lineage and strength were far from ordinary. From above, Saint Mars murmured, astonished.
Sword Saint, his power is unfathomable. The bloodline of the celestial dragons is not something a mere Ashveil can contend with. Ha ha ha.
Saint Mars laughed, his tone both mocking and impressed. Indeed, overthrowing the celestial dragons was not a task for a novice. The foundation they had built over centuries could not be shaken by a young man, no matter how prodigious. A tense wind swept across the battlefield, carrying the crackling energy of the white dragon. Even the ocean seemed to recoil, waves bending and churning as if anticipating the clash. Ashveil's calm eyes tracked every movement, each breath measured and steady. Below him, the Whitebeard pirates braced themselves, their hearts pounding. They had witnessed legends, faced monstrous foes, yet nothing prepared them for this display of power. It was a war unlike any other, and Ashveil stood at the epicenter. Sword Saint Bickley's grin widened, his confidence unshaken despite his earlier disbelief.
Let's see if you can truly match this, Ashveil. Show me the limits of your so-called endless Haki.
Chapter 181, Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki. Facing the surging light dragon, Ashveil nodded in satisfaction at Bickley. This strike surpassed even the strongest attack he had unleashed against the united army. Celestial dragons, indeed, were not to be underestimated, but
Is that?
as a celestial dragon, his observation Haki had transformed fundamentally after awakening, allowing him to sense the composition of Ashveil's attack. Relaxing slightly, Bickley smiled, recognizing the structure of the strike.
HMPH by composition alone, Ashveil's attack falls short.
Pure Conqueror's Haki, while immensely powerful, was several times stronger than ordinary armament Haki or Ryu techniques, yet it was not the pinnacle. The strongest strike combined sword energy with Haki, Only the perfect fusion of the two could unleash the ultimate blow, and Bickley had mastered that art.
Ashveil, your technique is inferior. You cannot withstand this strike.
Bickley hovered, radiating a terrifying aura, arrogance written across his face. Ashveil glanced upward, his expression calm, almost amused. In the face of absolute power, flashy techniques were meaningless.
You will experience my Conqueror's Haki, Bickley. I doubt you have ever felt such overwhelming force.
Ashveil murmured, tilting his head. There was no hesitation in him. He did not fear Bickley's superior slashing. In an instant, two colossal attacks erupted, shaking the very air. The white giant dragon lunged at Ashveil's golden Conqueror's Haki dragon. Its claws dug into the golden scales yet failed to pierce them. Unexpectedly, the golden giant dragon countered with a single, thunderous slap. Boom! The strike made the entire world quake. Bickley's previous combination of sword energy and Haki exploded outward, sending shockwaves across nearby islands, uprooting trees with ease. Yet within Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki barrier, no Whitebeard pirates or prisoners were harmed. Two worlds existed simultaneously inside the barrier, untouched. Outside, devastation reigned. Whitebeard watched, his eyes heavy with awe and disbelief.
I never thought.
He murmured. Once the unstoppable force, now a bystander to power far beyond even his own. Golden Lion Shiki approached him slowly.
There is no helping it, Whitebeard. This is the clash between Ashveil and the strongest celestial dragon in 800 years.
Chapter 182. Ashveil overwhelms the Sword Saint. Moreover, what was most terrifying was the sight in the sky. Ashveil completely dominated Sword Saint Bickley. Across the battlefield, the holy sword dragon was obliterated instantly by Ashveil's attack. A golden long dragon, roaring with thunderous force, surged toward Bickley. Sword Saint Bickley's face turned pale, his pupils contracting as a look of sheer disbelief crossed his features.
How?
Bickley's voice trembled. Even though his slash was powerful, he never expected it to be annihilated so easily. His technique should have outmatched Ashveil's, yet only one conclusion remained. Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki was overwhelmingly terrifying. Absolute power alone could make his attack fail. Beads of sweat formed on Bickley's forehead. This seemingly unassuming man was as fearsome as Emu. He had never imagined someone so young could rival the heights of Emu's power. The thought sent shivers down his spine, almost as if Ashveil were an otherworldly being. It was hard to believe a human could possess such talent. He might even surpass.
No.
He whispered, disbelief etched across his face. The strongest celestial dragon in 800 years, Emu's designated successor, had fallen to Ashveil in a matter of moments. It was impossible to comprehend. Sengoku's glasses reflected a blinding white light as he finally spoke.
The Sword Saint.
Chapter 183. The Demon King emerges. Garp, standing nearby, widened his eyes in disbelief. Known as the marine hero for decades, he had once personally defeated Pirate King Roger, and his strength had long been considered terrifying. Yet now, compared to Ashveil, it felt almost pathetic. As everyone's attention remained on the battlefield, the island where Sword Saint Bickley had fallen began to tremble violently. The observers watched in astonishment as Bickley, who moments ago had been on the brink of defeat, rose to his feet once more. But this time, his appearance had drastically changed. His hair grew long again, and his muscles swelled to twice their former size. Though the beast-like expression on his face receded, he now bore the terrifying presence of a demon king. His eyes glowed green, his mouth twisted into a terrifying grin, and the bridge of his nose appeared severed. Bickley gazed at Ashveil in the sky and laughed maniacally.
HMPH, 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 HMPH.
Bickley bellowed, exuding an aura of pure malice. The sinister energy radiating from him was unlike anything previously felt from his holy sword. It was oppressive, repulsive, and overwhelming. Ashveil, observing from above, narrowed his eyes, intrigued.
Impressive.
He muttered.
And this aura.
The Bickley before him no longer resembled a divine descendant. He was a demon king incarnate. Ashveil's expression grew serious.
If this is true, then my suspicion holds. The celestial dragons are the true usurpers of this world. And perhaps this is why they have hidden so much of history.
Bickley roared, charging with terrifying speed.
Roar, die Ashveil!
In an instant, he appeared before Ashveil, swinging his holy sword, now ablaze with dazzling light, directly toward Ashveil's head. The slash tore through the air, leaving a spatial rift crackling with electrical currents. Ashveil's eyes narrowed. Bickley's speed had increased tremendously. His strength had multiplied several times, though his consciousness appeared clouded, perhaps why he had always hidden this form. Clang, the impact resonated like a bell across the sky, shaking everything below. Even though Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki defense absorbed the brunt, the 1,000-meter-long slash wave rippled outward, exploding a kilometer away. 18 connected mountains were leveled instantly. Sparks flew from Bickley's holy sword as the attack dissipated, yet Ashveil remained unharmed.
Not bad, your attack penetrated 1 centimeter of my Conqueror's Haki. Impressive.
Ashveil commented with a faint click of his tongue. The Super Conqueror's Haki defense shield only extended a decimeter around him, so for Bickley's enhanced form to pierce even 1 centimeter was remarkable.
What?
Bickley roared, enraged. This human dared mock him, a celestial dragon of unmatched pride. Fury overtook him. He grabbed his greatsword and unleashed a relentless barrage at Ashveil. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Streaks of sword light filled the air. Sparks erupted with each strike against Ashveil's shield, tearing the surrounding space into chaos. Spatial rifts formed, slashing waves collided, and destruction radiated outward for kilometers. Within a 1,000-kilometer radius, traces of devastation marked the battlefield. Fortunately, no settlements lay within the range, or the area would have become a living hell. Still, people farther away felt the tremors. They peered out from their homes, faces filled with shock and confusion.
What's happening? An earthquake?
A young man asked, staring at the quaking ground.
No, this isn't natural.
Another replied.
Could someone be this powerful? A god, perhaps?
Chapter 184, Celestial Madness Unleashed. On the battlefield, Sword Saint Bickley's roars echoed relentlessly. The second elder of the Gorosei, stationed below, was visibly terrified. The high-pitched, unsettling cries from the sky combined with Bickley's grotesque, feral appearance left him in shock. Though Saint Mars had met Bickley before, he had always exuded an aura of aloofness, extreme mystery, and calm. Now, the Sword Saint resembled either a child lost to madness or a frenzied lunatic. Saint Mars could think of only 2 beings capable of driving Bickley to such a state: Emu and Ashveil. Marine high-ranking officials, including Sengoku, Kong, and Garp, furrowed their brows, all gazing skyward with shock.
This!
Garp blurted out, his straightforward nature unable to contain his disbelief. Sengoku quickly tugged his arm, signaling him to remain silent. Garp's frown deepened. Were the celestial dragons he had always protected truly so despicable? Vice Admiral Tsuru stepped forward, her voice low.
Just now.
She added. Sengoku froze. The celestial dragons he had long served intended to eradicate the Marines. Garp's anger boiled over.
What kind of wretched celestial dragons are these? I've always despised them, but now I see they embody the darkness of this world. I will not let them live.
He bellowed. The Whitebeard pirates also stared skyward in shock.
Celestial dragons.
Murmured Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. Golden Lion Shiki, cigar in mouth, smirked with disdain.
Yes, the true face of the celestial dragons.
For centuries, the celestial dragons had propagated the idea that their bloodline was unmatched in nobility. But now that claim seemed hollow, a facade masking true evil. Among them, one celestial dragon, Doflamingo, observed with a troubled expression. Though he was a celestial dragon himself, he knew his lineage and appearance were far removed from Bickley's monstrous form.
I once stayed in Mary G.Wise.
Doflamingo said solemnly.
And none of the celestial dragons I met looked like that. Yet there is one lineage I never encountered.
Marco nearby frowned.
Only one lineage. Yes, Emu's bloodline. rarely seen, rumored to possess godlike power.
Doflamingo stated bluntly. On the battlefield, Bickley's holy sword continued its swings, yet Ashveil remained unharmed. His super Conqueror's Haki defense absorbed the attacks with ease, at most creating a faint ripple. Ashveil's lips curled in a disdainful smile.
What kind of pitiful transformation is this? You made yourself grotesque, yet your strength remains weak.
He said calmly. Bickley's fury ignited.
Damn you, Ashveil, I will tear you apart with my own hands.
He lifted his holy sword, merging Haki and holy light to create a bizarre spatial anomaly. With a mighty swing, Bickley unleashed a space-devouring slash directly at Ashveil. Ashveil narrowed his eyes. The Sword Saint's defensive technique had now become an offensive one, and it was terrifyingly effective. The slash consumed the space around it, leaving a void of pitch-black emptiness in the sky. On the ground, the Whitebeard pirates and observers widened their eyes. Even Ashveil's super Conqueror's Haki was being tested in ways they had never seen.
Even Ashveil's Haki.
Marco muttered in disbelief. Empress Hancock stomped her feet anxiously, but she could do nothing. Her power was irrelevant against the scale of destruction unfolding. Any intervention could jeopardize Ashveil's battle. Garp's worry was evident. He did not wish for Bickley to succeed. Moments ago, Bickley had vowed that anyone who saw his face must die.
Sengoku, pay attention.
Garp warned.
If Bickley wins, he becomes our enemy. He's released so many attacks already, and after defeating Ashveil, he will be in a weakened state. If we gather our forces, maybe we can strike him down.
Sengoku clenched his fists.
Garp!
Chapter 185, The Overlord's Domain. Saint Mars felt utterly helpless. He had counted on Bickley returning him to Mary Jihuai's after victory, yet now that seemed impossible. Imu had always guarded the secrecy of her lineage carefully. Even the Gorosei and the celestial dragons from the other 19 countries were unaware of it. Furthermore, the elder recalled Imu stating that anyone outside their bloodline who learned the secret could not be allowed to live. Even if he begged for mercy, Imu would not spare him.
If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. Let's face him.
Saint Mars finally declared. This startled everyone nearby, particularly Kong and Sengoku. The Gorosei, loyal as they were to the celestial dragons, rarely prioritized words of action over decorum. In truth, their first instinct was always self-preservation. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Ashveil merely frowned at Bickley's grotesque attacks. Then, in an instant, he vanished, taking the surrounding space with him.
Ha 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 ha, he's dead, kid. You dare challenge a god's power, overestimating yourself.
Bickley laughed maniacally, the sinister sound amplified by his Conqueror's Haki, echoing across the Whitebeard pirates' area and sending chills through the onlookers.
Ashveil.
Yuru's voice trembled. He could hardly believe the scene before him.
Damn it, he killed Ashveil. I'll avenge him.
Marco's body ignited in a brilliant blue flame, transforming into a majestic phoenix. Diamond Jazu, Flower Sword Vista, and others also activated their combat forms. The Whitebeard pirates had no fear of death now. Previously restrained by Ashveil's presence, they could finally fight freely. Whitebeard had already activated his Tremor fruit powers, his narrowed eyes locking on Bickley, ready to strike the celestial dragon at any moment. The aura of the entire crew surged, and even the surrounding sea began to boil. Bickley, sensing the rage of the Whitebeard pirates below, only laughed.
Ha 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 ha, you pitiful humans dare oppose me? Even Ashveil fell by my hand, what hope do you have? I'll kill all of you along with the United Army.
The United Army captives tensed, realizing they could be buried with him. Then a lazy voice cut through the tension.
Hey Bickley, you really think you defeated me?
Ashveil appeared behind Bickley, clenching his fists, eyes locked on the madman above. Bickley's face paled. Ashveil had just been hit by his devouring slash. Even the Conqueror's Haki infused in that attack had been nullified. Yet here he was, appearing directly behind Bickley, an impossible sight. The Whitebeard pirates' faces lit with relief and joy.
Ha 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 ha, Ashveil, don't scare us like that.
Marco rolled his eyes, exasperated by Ashveil's unpredictability.
Gururara, see, I told you he'd be fine.
Whitebeard laughed heartily.
You!
Bickley cried, disbelief etched on his face. Ashveil's lips curled in a faint smile.
Dodging your attacks is simple.
He said, voice calm, eyes still fixed on the furious sword saint.
Do you feel it?
Ashveil asked.
Feel what?
Bickley snarled, confusion crossing his features.
My Conqueror's Haki.
Ashveil said evenly.
Spreading all around you.
Chapter 186, Master of Space. Sword Saint Bickley frowned, his brows knitted in confusion and disbelief.
That's right, within this domain I am God. I am the Lord.
Ashveil muttered, a faint smirk playing on his lips.
You call yourself Lord.
Bickley's expression shifted, wary and incredulous. Such arrogance, to proclaim himself a god in this world, does this brat dare to contend with Imu-sama?
Brat, don't speak so wildly, you merely dodged my attack by chance. To claim divinity, you think too highly of yourself. There is only one god in this world, and that is Imu-sama.
He roared. The holy sword in Bickley's hands flared brilliantly as he unleashed a flurry of attacks toward Ashveil. Each swing devoured space itself, tearing rifts in the air that stretched across the battlefield. One rift, colliding with Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki-infused defense, caused the barrier to vanish entirely. Within his domain, Ashveil's eyes narrowed as he observed the barrier's disappearance. Finally, he understood. Bickley's attacks weren't destroying his defense, they were a spatial technique. His barrier had been transferred to another plane of space.
Interesting.
Ashveil murmured, nodding slightly.
So this is how you achieve such attacks through your sword, Bickley. Clever for a brute like you.
The weapon radiated a sacred aura, incongruous with Bickley's inherently sinister nature.
Bastard, I am a descendant of God.
Bickley screamed, fury igniting as he pressed forward with relentless attacks. Below, the Whitebeard pirates and United Army captives tensed. If Ashveil fell, their survival would demand a desperate struggle against the unstoppable Sword Saint. Ashveil's lips curved in a faint smile.
I told you, within this domain I am king. I am the master.
Sharp spatial slashes emerged, slicing through the battlefield. Just as they neared Ashveil, he vanished without a trace, reappearing moments later across the field. Bickley's eyes widened in shock. Again, another spatial slash came at Ashveil, only for him to disappear once more. No matter how frenzied the attack, it could not touch him. Desperation twisted Bickley's face as he unleashed all his observation Haki, yet he could not sense Ashveil's position. The truth struck him like lightning: this was no simple evasion. Ashveil's ability was spatial. Unlike Bickley, who relied on his holy sword to manipulate space, Ashveil wielded the very fabric of space with his own power. Sweat beaded on Bickley's forehead as terror finally seeped into his heart. Ashveil, this boy, possessed the same godlike spatial ability as Imu-sama.
You finally understand, Bickley.
Ashveil said softly, appearing directly behind him.
Within this domain, I can move to any point in space at will.
Chapter 187, The Tsunami of Power. The colossal slash, stretching thousands of meters, tore through the battlefield, sending shockwaves that battered the earth. For Ashveil, this attack was trivial, but for the world below, it was nothing short of apocalyptic. The immense slash carved a scar across the sky, splitting the heavens and the earth as if the world itself were being torn apart. The shockwave struck a nearby island, cleaving it in two with a thunderous roar. Boom! The land collapsed instantly. The slash surged onward, plowing into the vast sea and splitting the waters asunder. Towering waves rose in all directions, currents spiraling violently across the sky, while the ground was plunged into shadow beneath the maelstrom. The Whitebeard pirates, safely shielded beneath Ashveil's golden Conqueror's Haki barrier, gaped in awe and fear. Bickley, the Sword Saint's raw power was undeniable, yet even as he faced such an adversary, Ashveil remained resolute.
How many times do I have to tell you, Sword Saint? No matter how you strike, you can't hit me.
Ashveil's eyes narrowed, a faint smirk curling his lips. Appearing directly before Bickley, Ashveil condensed a massive Conqueror's Haki-infused fist above his head and slammed it down with crushing force. Bickley's pupils dilated in shock. He tried to evade, but Ashveil's speed and sudden appearance rendered his observation Haki useless. Before Bickley could deploy his holy sword's defensive barrier, the fist struck, sending blood spraying across the sky. The sword saint was hurled downward, crashing toward Ashveil's golden conqueror's Haki barrier. The combined weight of the fist and Haki threatened to shatter it. Below, the Whitebeard pirates gasped in disbelief.
What the hell, is Ashveil trying to kill us too?
Marco exclaimed, dumbfounded.
Yeah, his power is incredible. What if he smashes through our barrier?
Flower Sword Vista stammered, lips trembling. Hearing this, other pirates below also panicked, shouting toward Ashveil above.
Stop it, Ashveil, you're not trying to kill us, are you?
High above, Ashveil shook his head, bemused. Though he could be lazy at times, he was not foolish enough to harm his own people. His golden conqueror's Haki barrier was unyielding, fortified with abundant Haki to absorb impacts. Though the fist struck with tremendous force, much of its power dissipated, leaving the barrier intact. With a deafening boom, Bickley collided with the Haki wall, the sound echoing across heaven and earth. Everyone beneath the barrier trembled at the sheer intensity. The residual energy from Ashveil's massive attack radiated outward, disintegrating islands within the Whitebeard pirates' territory. The surrounding sea rose violently into the sky before crashing down in towering waves.
Tsunami! It's a tsunami!
The pirates shouted as the massive waves surged toward their base. Even elite captains like Marco, Jazu, and Ace exchanged worried glances. Many were devil fruit users, vulnerable to being overwhelmed by the surging water. Yet when the waves struck Ashveil's conqueror's Haki barrier, they were effortlessly split in two, surging harmlessly in all directions. Relief washed over the pirates. Edward Newgate, the captain of the Whitebeard pirates, exhaled softly, a rare moment of awe in his expression. Golden Lion, observing the scene, approached with a mischievous grin.
Ha, Whitebeard, I didn't expect even a man as strong as you, the strongest in the world, to show surprise at just the aftershock of Ashveil's power.
Whitebeard scowled, cheeks tinged with embarrassment.
Old Lion, what nonsense. When was I surprised? I'm fine, thank you very much. Don't lump me in with Marco, who's never seen a grand display.
Marco rolled his eyes at his captain's prideful claim, while Golden Lion leaned closer, still teasing.
Oh, is that so? I just noticed your breathing tightened, a little sign of inner surprise.
Chapter 188, The Fall of the Sword Saint. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed, silently cursing Golden Lion. That old rascal, he must have been just as shocked as he was, yet he had the nerve to pretend otherwise, probably staring at Whitebeard the whole time. Otherwise, there was no way anyone could have missed his long exhale.
You old lion, how dare you criticize me? Have you forgotten your first days in the Whitebeard pirates? Ashveil beat you to a pulp. Ha ha ha! I saw how flustered you were back then, not calm at all, quite disheveled even.
Whitebeard shot back, mocking Golden Lion without hesitation. Golden Lion's cheeks flushed crimson. The two veteran pirates, titans of the old era, now looked like squabbling children, a sight both ridiculous and strangely endearing. Around them, other onlookers dissected the battle in hushed whispers.
My goodness, that Ashveil.
Muttered St. Mars, the second elder.
This confirms it. Sword Saint Bickley is finished. Even if he survives, he'll be severely crippled.
St. Mars added, his expression exaggerated, though all present understood the truth. The sheer force of Ashveil's attack had been overwhelming, a blow like that could either end a life or leave a lasting disability. Sengoku's fists clenched tightly. Sword Saint Bickley, once considered among the most formidable of the celestial dragons, had been effortlessly defeated. The only one capable of challenging Ashveil now was Imu-sama. If even she faltered, then Ashveil would truly command the world. Land, riches, and compensation meant nothing. Control of the world itself was now within his reach. Nearby, Garp laughed heartily, clapping his hands in amusement.
Sword Saint Bickley even tried to kill all of us. Who would have thought he'd end up like this? I'd love to see how he plans to survive now.
The Admirals Sengoku, Kizaru, and Vice Admiral Jin watched in shock. In previous encounters, even their combined efforts had failed against Ashveil, and any thought of challenging him now seemed utterly insane. Even notorious pirates like Big Mom and Kaido of the Beasts widened their eyes, recalling past wars. They hadn't expected Ashveil to rise in power so swiftly.
This kid.
Big Mom muttered, blinking in astonishment. Kaido swallowed, unease written across his face. Captain Rock's ambition had once driven the two of them to consider uniting for a massive war. Now, facing Ashveil, such thoughts seemed not only impossible but foolhardy. Sword Saint Bickley, the Gorosei, even the mightiest celestial dragons, none could surpass him. Meanwhile, Sword Saint Bickley, battered and humiliated, tumbled across Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki wall, finally crashing to the ground with a thunderous boom. The impact carved a colossal crater, extending deep into the sea. Bickley's unconscious form floated atop the waves at the mercy of the ocean. From above, Ashveil descended slowly, godlike, merging seamlessly with the Whitebeard pirates' ranks. His massive Conqueror's Haki wall dissipated without trace, leaving only awestruck onlookers. The pirates swarmed around Ashveil, their excitement palpable.
I never expected someone as terrifying as Sword Saint to be so easily defeated.
Uruj exclaimed, approaching first. Empress Hancock walked forward, her gaze filled with admiration and awe. The defeat of a celestial dragon, renowned as the strongest in 800 years, stirred something deep within her. Her queenly pride softened only in the presence of Thorn Ashveil.
Lord Ashveil, your power is astonishing. To defeat Sword Saint.
Hancock's cheeks flushed, her eyes shimmering. Even elite captains like Marco, Jazu, and Ace voiced their respect, shouting praises toward Ashveil. Ashveil, ever unbothered, scratched his ear casually. He was used to their admiration by now. A young intelligence officer approached, bowing deeply.
Reporting, Lord Ashveil, Sword Saint Bickley is not entirely dead. We have recovered his body. How would you like to proceed?
Ashveil raised an eyebrow. Even the elite celestial dragons possessed incredible resilience. Though his attack had been immense, it had not completely killed Bickley.
Bring him forward. I'm curious to see him now.
Chapter 189, Humiliation of a God Lineage. Bickley, the Sword Saint, glanced around and felt a surge of humiliation. The onlookers stared at him as though he were nothing but a monkey, an insult he could hardly bear. The celestial dragons of Holy Land Mary-Geoise treated their human pets with that same condescending gaze. I am a descendant of God.
Hey, you inferior humans, how dare you stare at me like that?
He shouted, his voice trembling with rage.
Do you even know who I am? I am of Emu's bloodline, kneel before me.
But no one knelt, no one flinched. Bickley's eyes locked on Ashveil, a fury rose in his voice.
And you, Ashveil, don't think you're special just because you defeated me. I am no ordinary celestial dragon. I am of Emu's lineage Mobite clan. Since you reduced me to this, Emu will never spare you.
Ashveil narrowed his eyes, unimpressed. Bickley had truly misread the situation. Even now, arrogant as he was, he dared stand against him. Compared to Bickley's bluster, the more pragmatic Saint Mars and Kaido seemed far more grounded.
HMPH.
Ashveil snorted coldly.
You know what? I'm not bothered to deal with you personally. Let my subordinate handle you.
He turned casually toward Uruj.
Uruj, this one's yours. Teach him a proper lesson.
Uruj stepped forward, hesitation flashing across his face for a moment. As he did, Donquixote Doflamingo the Yasha advanced, a sly grin on his face.
Uruj, don't waste this chance.
Doflamingo said.
He's still human, nothing divine about his cruelty. You're under Ashveil now, you cannot let him look down on you.
Doflamingo's words hung heavy in the air. Though he himself was a celestial dragon, his family had once sought to return to Mary-Geoise, only to be denied by the higher echelons, the very Mobite line Bickley claimed as his own. That rejection had fueled Doflamingo's ambition, and now, this was his chance for vengeance. Uruj stiffened. A celestial dragon is still just a man, he thought, if this
Saint
can be humiliated, so can any of them. He raised his massive palm, his muscles coiled like a spring. Bickley's eyes widened in shock. How dare he? Even as a celestial dragon, he had never been disrespected like this.
You beast, you worthless human, do you want to die?
Bickley snarled, anger and pain mixing on his face. Yurush smiled coldly, lifting his hand higher.
Descendant of God? Ha, you were crushed by Captain Ashveil. Do you really still deserve to speak of divine lineage?
His roar echoed around them. Then smack, Yuru's palm connected with Bickley's cheek. The crack of skin met flesh rang out sharply. Around them, people exhaled in satisfaction. Even if you were a celestial dragon, no one dared provoke the Whitebeard pirates or their new king without consequence. Bickley's hand trembled, touching the red bruise forming on his cheek. His face burned, humiliated beyond anything he had felt before struck by it.
Lowly.
Chapter 190, The Humbling of a Celestial Dragon. Bickley, the so-called sword saint of the celestial dragons, roared with fury, veins bulging on his forehead.
You insolent creature, how dare you lay a hand on a celestial dragon? This is sacrilege, I'll execute you myself.
He drew his holy sword, ready to cut Yuruj down, but the moment he tried to move, his body froze. His muscles wouldn't respond. Even without observation Haki, he could clearly see Yuruj's incoming slap, yet his body refused to dodge. Every time he tried to muster his Haki, it instantly dissolved, swallowed whole by an overwhelming tide of invisible power. A suffocating Conqueror's Haki held him in absolute submission. Bickley's expression twisted as terror finally dawned. Slowly, his eyes drifted toward the man standing calmly nearby.
How dare you hit me a second time?
Bickley sputtered, cheeks swelling red and uneven. Humiliation burned through him. Ashveil didn't even bother touching him, he let a
Lowly human.
strike him instead. It was a disgrace beyond imagination. It was an insult to Emu herself. Yuruj blinked at Bickley's outburst, shrugging. At this point, he'd already grown comfortable with slapping the arrogant saint. The fear he once had of the celestial dragons had long vanished.
What a strange request.
Yuruj muttered with genuine confusion.
But if you insist.
Smack, smack, smack. The crisp rhythm echoed across the island. Meanwhile, Bickley desperately tried to reach his holy sword, to cut down the brute in front of him, to cut down Ashveil, but his body refused to obey. No matter how much Haki he pushed, Ashveil's overwhelming Conqueror's Haki held him locked in place, like a puppet with its strings seized. His hair grew disheveled, his face distorted with anger and fear.
Thorn Ashveil, you bastard.
He screamed internally only, to receive another resounding slap in response. Eventually, Yuru's hands trembled in pain, and he exhaled sharply.
Damn!
Bickley breathed out shakily.
It's finally over.
He thought. It wasn't. Ashveil clicked his tongue in mild disappointment.
Yuruj, you look strong, but your slaps are weak. Let someone else take over.
He then turned to the Whitebeard pirates, who had been enjoying the show. They immediately perked up, sleeves rolling as wicked anticipation spread across their faces. Bickley's pupils shrank in horror.
Wait!
His voice cracked, his arrogance evaporated.
No, please, I was wrong. I won't act superior again. Please stop.
But the pirates were far too excited to listen. The chance to slap a celestial dragon emu's own descendant no less was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They surrounded him with wide, eager grins. Whitebeard strode up first, laughing heartily.
Gururara, hitting a celestial dragon feels surprisingly good.
Golden Lion Shiki joined him with an equally wicked grin.
And it's even better since he's related to Emu. Ha 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 ha.
Rebellious at heart, Shiki let out a few enthusiastic strikes, venting years of suppressed frustration. Smack, smack, smack. His palms stung, but satisfaction burned warmly in his chest. Soon the rest followed. Slap, 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 slap. The sound of open-handed strikes filled the air like an unending storm. At first, Bickley shrieked with each impact, but as the swelling worsened, cheeks ballooning, lips puffing, his cries turned into muffled whimpers. No one could understand what he was saying anymore. By the time the crowd finally lost interest, Bickley's face looked grotesquely swollen, red and purple like a malformed balloon. Ashveil stepped forward, his shadow falling over the broken saint. Bickley lay half-collapsed on the ground, trembling.
How does it feel, Bickley?
Ashveil asked calmly.
Do you still believe your celestial dragon blood makes you superior?
He crouched slightly, meeting Bickley's ruined gaze.
Do you still dare speak to me without respect?
Chapter 191, The Celestial Dragon's Humiliation. Ashveil observed Bickley with a faint smile, clearly pleased with the celestial dragon's trembling demeanor. He approached, calm yet commanding, and in a smooth motion, drew Bickley's holy sword before him.
This sword is impressive. It's a pity it was entrusted to you. Why not hand it over to me instead?
Ashveil said, his voice carrying a teasing undertone. Bickley's face immediately paled, his features contorting in disbelief. This sword, a personal gift from Emu, was his most treasured possession, more precious than life itself. The very thought of surrendering it made his heart ache. Even in his private thoughts, resistance seemed impossible. He would have been a million times unwilling. Ashveil, noticing the faint hesitation beneath Bickley's swollen, pig-like face, let out a soft snort. That subtle sound alone froze Bickley in place. Refusal was no longer an option. Who knew what other torments Ashveil might devise if he resisted? It was inevitable. The sword would end up in Ashveil's hands. Bickley, though terrified, quickly composed himself. Bowing and scraping, he muttered nervously, desperate to appease Ashveil's impatience. Ashveil's lips curved into a faint smile. Truly, the bones of the celestial dragons were soft, pliable under pressure. After a brief play with the sword, Ashveil handed it to Hawkeye Mihawk without a hint of attachment.
Mihawk, this weapon is for you. It should help you refine your swordsmanship even further.
Ashveil said calmly, indifferent to the blade's value. He had no need for the weapon himself. His strength had reached heights where no tool could enhance him further. Bickley's eyes widened in shock. He had expected Ashveil to claim the sword for himself, but to give it to his subordinate? The weapon's previous owner had been Popos, a figure who once rivaled even Emu in strength. And yet, Ashveil treated it as casually as if it were nothing. Bickley's mind raced. Could it be that Ashveil's true power surpassed even what he had witnessed? Was he far stronger than anyone dared imagine? Mihawk, on the other hand, was visibly moved, tears welling in his eyes.
Ashveil-san, you would entrust me with such a precious weapon to guide my swordsmanship.
He said, voice thick with gratitude. Ashveil immediately thought, not good. He had no interest in further entanglements with Mihawk.
This weapon is useless to me. Keep it for yourself, Mihawk. Minions, take Bickley down.
He ordered, then vanished from sight in a flash. The lure of his reward left no room for lingering here. Bound hand and foot, Bickley was handed over to Ashveil's labor team. The tension among the united army was palpable. Bickley was, after all, a celestial dragon, superior even to Kong and the Gorosei. Yet the awkwardness lay in the fact that he had openly declared he would kill anyone who saw his true face. Their former respect now teetered on the edge of fear. Bickley's pride was in tatters. The humiliation he endured before the Whitebeard pirates was one thing, but now, before subordinates who normally wouldn't dare defy him, he had nowhere to hide his shame. His swollen face, the color of a pig's snout, made the situation even worse. Words stumbled from his lips in incoherent mutters. Meanwhile, Ashveil had little concern for Bickley's interactions. He was busy activating his system to claim the rewards he had earned. As expected, the system was generous. Red text streamed into his mind. Ding, congratulations, host, for defeating Celestial Dragon Bickley. Your Conqueror's Haki attribute points have been upgraded to 20,000. All Devil Fruit abilities have been raised to their limit. Host Ashveil. Conqueror's Haki points, 20,000. Devil Fruit abilities, Tremor limit, Magma limit, Search limit, Glint limit, Ice limit, Appearance limit, Phoenix limit, Rumble limit, O Pope no Me limit. Devil Fruits, Tanuki Fruit, 3 Artificial Devil Fruits, African Hyena Fruit. Skills, Flash 100 meters, Conqueror's Haki passive defense shield, Shinra Tensei, self-created, Haki of the Supreme King Fusion, Golden Conqueror's Haki, Overlord Color Domain. Items, Healing Potion, Ham, Burger, Cola, Red Wine, Turkey Meat, Salad. Ashveil felt a surge of power, the fusion of his Conqueror's Haki and Devil Fruit mastery, elevating him to new heights. Even a simple strike now carried the overwhelming might of 20,000 Conqueror's Haki points combined with limit Devil Fruit abilities. Just as he reveled in his newfound strength, a pineapple-headed figure stumbled toward him, flask in hand and reeking of alcohol. Marco, 1st Division commander of the Whitebeard pirates, grinned through his hiccups.
Ashveil, come drink. Ha ha ha, with you holding down the fort for us, our Whitebeard pirates will soon dominate this sea.
Chapter 192, Emu Awakens. With that, Marco draped his arm over Ashveil's shoulder, grinning widely. Ashveil shook his head, clearly exasperated by Marco's antics. Shortly after, Flower Sword Vista, Diamond Jazu, and other commanders arrived, each holding massive wine glasses. They pulled Ashveil toward the night's celebratory banquet.
Seriously, Ashveil, you're too slow. You're the star of tonight's feast, and yet you're late.
Fire Fist Ace said, a large piece of meat clenched in his teeth as he approached. Ashveil merely shook his head, muttering.
You guys!
He joined the banquet, quickly noticing something curious. His alcohol tolerance had risen along with the enhancement of his Conqueror's Haki. The system didn't mention it, but Ashveil considered it a pleasant hidden bonus. Facing the crowd's invitations, Ashveil smiled confidently. With his Conqueror's Haki now at 20,000 points, no amount of drinking would overwhelm him tonight.
Come on, let's drink until we can't stand. Anyone who doubted last time, step up now, no backing down, I accept your challenge.
Ashveil declared, finally showing an uninhibited side as he drank and ate alongside everyone. Laughter and revelry lasted well into the night. Meanwhile, in the Room of Flowers, a chilling presence stirred. Eyes sharp and cold, Emu awoke, scanning the surroundings with lethal precision.
Even Bickley has fallen.
Emu murmured, her voice cutting through the air.
But now,
Emu continued, a shadow of unease creeping into her tone. In centuries past, even the strongest once-in-a-century individuals could be handled by the Gorosei and Sword Saint Bickley. Emu herself had rarely intervened directly. Yet now, a 20-year-old had bested the pinnacle of Emu's lineage among the celestial dragons. A sense of genuine crisis gnawed at her, one she hadn't felt in 8 centuries. This child cannot be allowed to live, he must be eliminated immediately. The thought grew ever darker in Emu's mind. At that moment, a figure appeared before her, kneeling with utmost caution.
Done, report. How did the task I assigned you proceed?
Emu asked, her expression unreadable. Dunn, Bickley's twin brother, bore a similar physique and facial features. Though not as formidable as Bickley, he remained a powerful combatant. His brother's failure had left him wary, his every movement calculated.
Reporting, Lord Emu. The task assigned has been completed.
Dunn said respectfully, voice careful. Behind him, a group carried a red-cloaked figure, his body scarred from head to toe. This was the notorious criminal Red Count, recently freed by Ashveil from Impel Down. Emu didn't spare Red Count a glance, instead extending her hand. Seeing this, Dunn hastily approached, presenting the key fragment to her. Emu activated her ability, confirming its authenticity, and exhaled slowly, satisfied. Rising gracefully into the air, Emu departed. Only then did everyone else in the room rise. Those who had escorted Red Count looked to Dunn for guidance.
What should we do with him now, Sword King?
They asked. Sword King Dunn's lips curved into a disdainful smile.
This Red Count is foolish to covet the King of Heaven. Since the fragment has been confirmed by Lord Emu, he holds no further value.
Lijuo Dunn said, his tone cold.
Dispose of him immediately, but ensure he is removed before execution. This is the Room of Flowers, do not sully it.
He murmured. The scarred and weakened Red Count, unable to speak, was carried away with only one fate awaiting, death. After the group departed, Dunn narrowed his eyes, muttering to himself.
Is Ashveil truly that powerful?
He wondered aloud.
I never imagined Lord Emu would act personally and even bring the King of Heaven along. That weapon was what Lord Emu used against her mortal rival, Popos, thousands of years ago. Could it be that Ashveil has now reached a level that even makes Emu recall Popos, her lifelong adversary?
As Emu flew over Holy Land Marijihuais, the celestial dragons gazed in awe, fear, and disbelief.
The ancient ancestor has moved. Could the Sword Saint have truly failed?
Some whispered.
The Sword Saint!
Word spread rapidly across the celestial dragons. If these rumors were true, the world itself was shifting. Only Emu could maintain control. Far beyond Marijiwais, the wider world buzzed with speculation.
Did you hear that massive commotion yesterday?
A relative at world headquarters told me the world government sent their strongest champion. Even so, they lost to Ashveil. Shock rippled among the listeners. If true, the world might be entering a new era, not one dominated by the celestial dragons but by Ashveil. Discontent with the celestial dragons had long simmered among the masses. Were it not for their military enforcers, rebellion might already be widespread. In the New World, aboard the Red Hair pirate's ship, a skull-patterned flag swayed in the sea breeze. Red-haired Shanks stood at the bow, eyes fixed on the horizon toward the Whitebeard pirates.
This world is about to change, Beckman.
Shanks murmured. Beckman, cigar clamped in his mouth, tilted his head.
Shanks, do you mean?
Chapter 193, The Gods Take Notice. Earlier, red-haired Shanks had been deep in thought after receiving intelligence from the Celestial Dragons Network at the World Headquarters. Beckman's question hung in the air and Shanks did not answer immediately. Instead, he gazed toward the distant horizon, let out a soft sigh, and then began speaking deliberately.
Just this morning, I received word that Emu's personal bodyguard, Sword St. Bickley, was defeated by Ashveil.
Shanks said, his eyes narrowing slightly.
Sword St. Bickley.
Beckman echoed, confusion evident in his tone. He truly knew very little about the legendary swordsman. Around them, the crew had gathered, eager for Shanks' words. Their expressions made it clear they were hanging on every syllable. Shanks' lips moved carefully, and he swallowed before continuing.
It's normal that you don't know him.
Shanks murmured.
He is Emu's personal bodyguard and holds a prestigious title. He is recognized as the strongest celestial dragon of the past 800 years, and he is also Emu's successor.
The revelation sent shockwaves through everyone present. Emu's successor, someone who could rival even the Gorosei in strength, had been defeated by Ashveil. Beckman's expression turned serious, understanding dawning.
Wait,
He said, his cigar slipping slightly as his eyes flared with intensity. Those around them reacted with equal astonishment. At this rate, Ashveil was on the verge of overthrowing the divine order itself. The most incredible part, Ashveil was only 20 years old and his fame had spread across the seas in less than 2 months. Recalling Ashveil's meteoric rise starting with the complete annihilation of the Blackbeard pirates, everyone realized just how unprecedented his power and growth were. In mere months, he had become the only being capable of challenging Emu. New era, old eras.
his power and the speed of his rise.
Yasop said with visible emotion. Lucky Roo, the large man with a chicken leg in hand, adjusted his small black sunglasses, a white gleam reflecting across the lenses.
Thinking back, Captain Shanks, your decision to remain neutral was absolutely correct. Had we sided with the world government and suppressed the Whitebeard pirates, we might have ended up like that fool Kaido, imprisoned and defeated.
Lucky Roo murmured, his lips trembling slightly. Silence fell. Lucky Roo's words carried weight. Even if the Red Hair pirate's strength slightly surpassed the Beast's pirates, it was by no means an overwhelming margin. Aligning with other emperors like Kaido or Big Mom could have meant certain defeat at the hands of Ashveil. Whitebeard might have laughed at such a pitiful outcome.
Remaining neutral.
Shanks repeated, a faint smile forming.
There's something more news this morning truly surprised me.
Shanks continued.
And yes, it's still about Ashveil.
The crew lined in, curiosity piqued. If this news could shake Shanks himself, it must be extraordinary indeed. Shanks smiled faintly, tinged with helplessness as he looked toward the horizon.
Regarding neutrality,
Shanks said with a bitter, contemplative smile. The crew exchanged confused glances, unsure what he meant. Shanks, however, did not immediately explain. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the sharpest mind among the Red Hair pirates, Ben Beckman. Beckman paused, processing Shanks' words. His eyes widened as realization struck.
Shanks!
Chapter 194, Emu Descends. The members of the Red Hair Pirates looked at Shanks, one by one, eager to see if Beckman's realization was correct. If it were true, the implications were terrifying. A 20-year-old man was about to face the god of this world. This was history in the making, a dynastic upheaval that occurred once in a millennium. Shanks smiled faintly, his answer deliberate.
That's right, Emu is making a move.
Shanks said, lowering his voice with a grim expression. A collective gasp ran through the crew. Though they had suspected something, the revelation still shocked them. This was top-secret, monumental information. If leaked to a news agency, it would be worth at least 100 billion berries. Silence fell over the Red Hair Pirates as they absorbed the gravity of the news. Shanks' voice cut through the quiet.
A war that will shake the entire world is about to begin.
At the Whitebeard Pirates base, many members were still recovering from yesterday's celebrations, nursing hangovers from half a day of drinking. Most hadn't even risen yet. Yet Ashveil's laborers were already awake. After all, they were prisoners of the Whitebeard Pirates. Ashveil's rules were strict. Every prisoner had to rise at 5 a.m., complete their assigned daily work, and anyone falling behind would be forced to work overtime. Some prisoners had grown accustomed to this routine. Figures like Iron Fist Garp even enjoyed the physical challenge, treating it as a form of training. But one individual was entirely unaccustomed: Sword Saint Bickley, newly captured yesterday. Bickley's head remained swollen, his expression one of utter bewilderment. As a high-ranking celestial dragon, he was used to being pampered, served, and assisted throughout the day. Yet now he was woken early, handed a shovel, and sent to labor. Sleepy and frustrated, Bickley forced himself to move with exaggerated energy. If he didn't comply, he feared the punishment that would follow. His face was still recovering from the swelling, and he wanted no further humiliations. A twinge of nostalgia hit him. He longed for his past life of luxury and freedom and constantly contemplated escape. With his immense strength, even shackled with seastone, he could easily flee provided Ashveil wasn't present. But Ashveil rarely left his domain. Convincing him to step outside the Whitebeard Pirates' territory was harder than killing him. Bickley groaned internally.
Ashveil, please, just go out for a while.
Just as he despaired, a powerful aura suddenly surged through the sky. Even St. Mars, who was nearby and absorbed in work, froze, a rare expression of alarm crossing his face. This familiar presence, the terrifying Conqueror's Haki, was unmistakable. Both men exchanged glances and confirmed what their instincts already knew. Their master, the descendant of the legendary god, Imu-sama, had come in person. St. Mars' lips trembled as he looked up at the sky in disbelief.
This!
The laborers of the United Army paused, their eyes turning skyward. Many had only recently heard of Imu's existence, the deity they had served for countless years. Curiosity, awe, and fear filled their hearts. Bickley, however, felt a spark of hope. Finally, rescue had arrived. He could no longer endure this torturous labor.
Imu-sama, Imu-sama, please save me.
Bickley cried toward the sky. Above, a meteor-like figure appeared, reminiscent of Bickley's own dramatic entrances. Imu, however, did not crash down violently. She soared gracefully, scanning the area with a cold, piercing gaze. Her voice, ancient and difficult to discern as male or female, resonated through the Conqueror's Haki, carrying across the United Army.
Bickley, you fool, and all of you utterly incompetent. You forced me to come myself. This is disgraceful.
Every soldier lowered their heads at the godly presence, awed and terrified. Imu's expression remained icy, disdainful. She drew Conqueror's Haki into her throat, projecting her voice even further.
As your god, you dared to offend me in this manner. Now, in the name of God, I will put an end to you, Whitebeard Pirates.
Chapter 195, Clash of Overlords. A powerful resonance swept through the Whitebeard Pirates' territory, far different from the previous transmission. This time, the sound itself carried Conqueror's Haki. Invisible and penetrating, the vibrations transformed the voice into a tangible attack. The pirates, deep in sleep, suddenly felt dizzy and disoriented, as if struck by an invisible hammer. Many scrambled to put on their shoes, yet it felt as if immense weights pressed down on their bodies, leaving them stiff and trembling. Atmos the water buffalo, relying on his formidable physique, managed to stand, his expression puzzled.
This sound.
He paused, glancing around.
Also.
The others, mostly sober, nodded or stumbled similarly, stunned by the sheer intensity of the attack. In his dormitory, Ashveil stirred, awakened by the voice. He rarely narrowed his eyes, yet now they glimmered with solemn focus.
This technique.
He paused, assessing the situation.
If that's the case, there is no doubt. The person who arrived is Emu.
With a single glance, Ashveil estimated the strength of his opponent. There was no question that this entity's power surpassed even that of the Sword Saint. Ordinary fighters could be fatally harmed by such an attack. Swiftly, Ashveil deployed his Golden Conqueror's Haki, forming a protective wall that completely isolated the Whitebeard pirates from the external sound waves. A radiant barrier rose, blocking the invasive vibrations. Emu's expression remained unbothered. Her purpose was not to eliminate these low-ranking pirates, but to confront Ashveil himself. The emergence of his Golden Conqueror's Haki wall confirmed that he had noticed her presence and was ready. As expected, Ashveil levitated, employing the same Overlord Conqueror's Haki technique, matching Emu's height in the sky. The Whitebeard pirates' lower ranks emerged from their dormitories, dazed and staring at the figures above.
Is that?
The pirates' morale soared, reinforced by Ashveil's repeated victories. Many were confident that he could overcome Emu. Yet the veterans Whitebeard Edward Newgate, Golden Lion Shiki, and Hawkeye Mihawk remained grave, faces etched with concern. Even through the brief interaction, the sheer force of Emu's presence sent chills down their spines. Her conqueror's Haki subtly pressed down on Ashveil, signaling the incomprehensible scale of her power. A tense silence blanketed the Whitebeard pirates' area. Even the captives were on edge, aware that their fates were entwined with the outcome. Some, still loyal to the celestial dragon's influence, quietly wished Emu would prevail. Bickley the Sword Saint, his swollen face comically pronounced, shouted eagerly below.
Emu-sama, avenge me! Destroy that brat Ashveil!
Emu's cold gaze swept over him, her dark golden eyes piercing and unyielding.
Silence, you useless wretch. You have disgraced me. I even granted you the gift of immortality, yet you failed to even handle a mere boy.
Bickley lowered his head instantly, trembling. Despite his noble status, before Emu he was nothing. Her wrath could annihilate him without hesitation. Memories of countless clansmen executed under her judgment filled him with dread. He covered his mouth, no longer daring to speak. Saint Mars, observing the scene, quickly stifled his own words, sensing the danger of misstep. In the sky, Ashveil and Emu locked eyes. The chill in Emu's gaze radiated lethal intent. Her lips curled slightly, and her voice, rich and commanding, echoed once more.
HMPH, HMPH, HMPH. Impressive.
Ashveil, calm and composed, leaned forward slightly, mimicking her tone.
Your technique is formidable as well, Emu. To infuse sound with Conqueror's Haki and inflict damage.
Chapter 196, The Devastating Strike.
You fool! Emu's strength is unquestionable. How dare you speak to the god of this world like that?
Sword Saint Bickley roared from the ground, trying to assert his importance. He wanted to curry favor with Emu, to make Ashveil pay for his audacity, yet what awaited him was far beyond his expectations. A bolt of purple lightning struck suddenly. Even Bickley's renowned observation Haki could not sense it in time. The attack landed at his feet, exploding with a deafening boom that shook the sky and earth. Purple arcs of electricity crackled across the battlefield, and the elder beside Bickley, terrified, fell to the ground, his white beard infused with armament Haki wrapping around him protectively. Garp, Sengoku, Kong, and other nearby veterans narrowly avoided the strike. The force was so overwhelming that if it had been aimed at them, survival would have been impossible. When the energy dissipated, all eyes turned to the fallen sword Saint Bickley. The strongest celestial dragon in 800 years now lay charred and smoking, his body emitting a faint smell of burnt ozone. The crowd gasped in unison, unable to believe that a single strike from Ashveil had brought down such a powerful figure. If Ashveil had hidden his true strength before, this attack proved that he had grown even stronger. Even a being like Emu could face mortal danger from him if underestimated. Kaido of the Beasts and Charlotte Linlin approached, astonished at the sight of Bickley's blackened form. Katakuri, following Mama closely, bowed slightly before her.
Mama, I just used observation Haki to probe.
Katakuri said, astonished.
And there was no Haki in that attack. None at all.
Mama's bloodshot eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief.
What are you saying, Katakuri? That's impossible. Night Feather defeated Sword Saint Bickley without using Haki.
Katakuri nodded firmly, cupping his fist in respect.
Yes, Mama, that strike relied entirely on his devil fruit ability. Observation Haki confirms it contained no additional Haki.
Even Kaido felt chills at the revelation. A mere devil fruit ability, wielded with such precision and destructive force, was terrifying in its own right. Ashveil's Heishoku had been his trump card, but now a strange ability alone could obliterate a figure second only to Emu. The Whitebeard pirates watched in stunned silence.
Bickley!
Marco muttered, incredulous. Diamond Jazu's jaw dropped as he stared at Bickley's smoking body.
Yes, he fell instantly. Though Bickley had lost his holy sword, that alone couldn't account for such a swift defeat.
Chapter 197, Defying the God of the World.
Sorry, Emu, this guy was far too noisy. I had no choice but to act for some peace and quiet. I didn't expect to strike him so hard this time. Truly, my apologies.
Ashveil's lips curved into a slight, mocking smile, showing no hint of remorse. Emu could sense that Ashveil was mocking her clansmen for their weakness. Yet, having lived for centuries in this world, her composure was unmatched. Seeing her clansman, Sword Saint Bickley, electrocuted and incapacitated, she showed no sign of distress. Instead, she regarded Ashveil with a cold, knowing smile.
Oh, is that so? Then I should thank you, Ashveil. I too appreciate peace and quiet. Had you not acted, I might not have been able to restrain myself and could have ended that noisy fellow myself.
Her voice was chilling, reverberating across the battlefield and sending shivers down the spines of all who heard it. Ashveil narrowed his eyes, assessing Emu. It was clear she wasn't bluffing. She was capable of killing her own clansmen without hesitation.
You truly are a sinister being, Emu.
He murmured. Emu's laughter rang out, echoing ominously.
Ha ha ha, Ashveil, I had assumed that individuals like you and I already understood the truths of this world. Yet you remain so naive. Ha ha ha. Well, you're still a kid.
Her cold laughter spread across the Whitebeard pirates' territory, making the air itself feel heavier.
The truth of this world is simple. The big fish devours the small devours the shrimp. Yet you fail to comprehend it. Since Bickley lacked the strength, isn't it only natural for him to fall to a stronger being?
She added with an almost serene expression, countering Ashveil's earlier remark. Ashveil shook his head. Emu was unlike anyone he had ever encountered. She moved without human emotion like a perfect machine. Helplessly, he muttered to himself.
The one who doesn't understand the truth of this world.
He straightened, his resolve firm.
Well then, if a heartless entity like you has ravaged this world for centuries, I will act on behalf of the heavens and reshape this world.
Ashveil declared, his voice unwavering. Emu's laughter only intensified.
Don't be foolish, kid. You've only defeated a sword saint, someone merely favored by me. What is there to be proud of?
Her gaze was both confident and assessing.
I could grant you a choice, Ashveil. Surrender now, and all your past deeds could be forgiven. Moreover, I could bestow upon you power second only to one, above 10,000 others.
Her words surged outward with Conqueror's Haki, the terrifying aura instantly pressing in every direction. Even Whitebeard, the world's strongest man, Golden Lion Shiki, and Hawkeye Mihawk felt their bodies tense, cold sweat trickling down their foreheads.
Such fearsome Conqueror's Haki, even I, Golden Lion, feel the pressure.
Shiki muttered, astonished. Whitebeard nodded solemnly.
That means Emu's Conqueror's Haki rivals Ashveil's, and with Ashveil protecting us through his Haki wall.
Edward Newgate said with restrained awe. Hawkeye Mihawk, eyes sharp and unwavering, swore.
Even if this battle ends with Ashveil's defeat, I will still fight alongside him. I will follow him to the very end.
Whitebeard's expression softened with relief. It seemed Ashveil's choice in subordinates had been impeccable. Emu, observing from above, looked at Ashveil with measured approval, demonstrating the nobility and authority of a true ruler. Yet Ashveil smiled faintly. He had no interest in titles, no desire to hoard power. Even the highest position, constant worry, and endless scheming were meaningless to him. What he valued was already in his grasp, enjoying good food, basking in the sun, laughing with his brothers and friends. This life was infinitely more valuable than any crown or throne.
Emu, power means nothing to me.
Ashveil said softly, eyes gleaming with quiet confidence.
What I want is this life peaceful, undisturbed, shared with my friends and brothers. Nothing could be better than what I have now.
The Whitebeard pirates below felt inspired by his words.
Ashveil.
Chapter 198, Ashveil vs Emu 1.
Yes, Marco is right, and so am I. Just you wait, Ashveil. Don't think your drinking capacity is unbeatable. Next time I will definitely drink you under the table.
Diamond Jazu muttered, clenching his fist. Fire Fist Ace added loudly.
That's right, Captain Ashveil. Once you defeat Emu, we, the Whitebeard pirates, will drink for 3 days and 3 nights. Me too.
Another voice joined enthusiastically.
And me, I may not match you in combat, but I'll train to match your drinking prowess and drink you under the table.
Edward Newgate laughed heartily, slamming Murakumajiri into the deck as his immense aura swept across the ship.
Ha ha ha, did you hear that, Ashveil? We are all waiting for your victory. For the celebration, we'll drink for 3 days and 3 nights. You absolutely cannot lose this battle.
Whitebeard's laughter resonated across the Moby Dick. Ashveil's words and the reactions of the Whitebeard pirates ignited Emu's fury. The god of the world could not tolerate such blatant disregard. As the supreme ruler, he had already granted Ashveil immense face by inviting him personally. Countless people had submitted to him, yet Ashveil had the audacity to defy him and even look at him as if he were pitiable.
Since you are so ungrateful, don't blame me.
Emu said coldly. Her Conqueror's Haki thickened instantly, surging outward with unstoppable force like a dam bursting. The sky darkened rapidly, clouds forming as the bright sunlight dimmed. The sea churned violently under her immense aura, and the ground beneath her sank into a massive pit. Birds and beasts fled from the area, sensing the overwhelming power. Everyone nearby watched in disbelief. Even the Conqueror's Haki wall Ashveil had created began to ripple under the pressure.
Then let me test your true strength, Ashveil.
Emu declared with unwavering confidence. Ashveil smiled faintly. Finally, a challenge worthy of his full strength. He straightened, shedding his previously lazy demeanor, and released his own Conqueror's Haki in full force. The two auras collided with titanic force, shaking the very air. Earthquakes rippled through the land, the sea rose in massive waves, and underwater volcanoes erupted. The water turned crimson as the temperature soared, while dark cracks tore through space itself. Hundreds of small islands within 10 kilometers of the Whitebeard pirates were annihilated. Trees were uprooted, and the land itself shattered outside the protection of Ashveil's Haki wall. Whitebeard and the others stared in awe.
Is this?
Edward Newgate said, emotion lacing his words. Compared to this, his battle with Roger seemed almost trivial. Hawkeye Mihawk's sharp eyes gleamed.
Magnificent. To witness such a battle is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Even if I die, it will be worth it.
He muttered, thrilled at the display of raw power. The two Haki surges collided repeatedly, ripping and reshaping the world around them. Space itself seemed to fracture and then heal as the battle raged on. The intensity of their fight was almost incomprehensible, yet both fighters remained poised and smiling faintly, as if the battle were merely a test. The second elder finally spoke, his voice trembling with realization.
No.
The surrounding observers were stunned. To think that such catastrophic destruction was only a preliminary test of power, even Sengoku confirmed their assessment.
Yes.
He said, swallowing hard. The Whitebeard pirates craned their necks toward the sky, their expressions a mixture of shock and awe. Monsters.
Ha ha ha. I truly did not expect, Ashveil, that your strength could withstand my Conqueror's Haki.
She admitted, a rare note of sincerity in her voice. For centuries, no one had resisted her Haki save for the ancestor of the demon race who had long perished, yet Ashveil had endured. Ashveil allowed himself a faint smile.
You are the first person in this world who can withstand my Conqueror's Haki.
Chapter 199, Ashveil vs Emu 2.
HMPH, Emu, you are just a mere snake. How could you possibly match me, a dragon?
Ashveil said, his voice dripping with disdain. At the same time, he could not resist taunting her further.
I thought you would be more advanced than that fellow Bickley, but you are of the same ilk. You changed your appearance to gain some advantage, but it's truly pathetic.
Ashveil added with a slight smile, his tone playful yet scornful. Below, the Whitebeard pirates stared in utter shock at the colossal dragon and serpent conjured by the two. Their faces were frozen in awe and disbelief.
This!
Uruj muttered, eyes wide. No matter how he imagined it, he could not fathom how anyone could manifest Conqueror's Haki into such gargantuan forms. Even for someone like him, a Haki user, this was inconceivable. Doflamingo, standing beside him, swallowed hard, equally dumbfounded.
This!
Whitebeard Edward Newgate said slowly, his gaze fixed on the sky. Golden Lion Shiki, even as an uncrowned king, looked utterly convinced. The sheer abundance of Haki on display far surpassed anything he could hope to wield in his lifetime.
Yes, Whitebeard. Compared to our era, this clash is boundless in strength.
Shiki said, awe evident in his voice. Elsewhere, the united army and the other spectators were also stunned. They were thankful for Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki wall, which shielded them from the catastrophic aftershocks.
This collision of Conqueror's Haki is a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle. A battle of this level cannot simply be witnessed at leisure.
Kong muttered, gazing at the sky. Garp, however, focused on Emu.
I never expected that, Emu.
Garp muttered, glancing at Sword Saint Bickley, still unconscious from Ashveil's strike.
Garp, do not speak so carelessly. That is Lord Emu.
Buddha Sengoku warned hastily. Any indiscretion could be fatal if Emu overheard.
Ha ha ha, Sengoku, you old fool, thinking about hierarchy at a time like this.
Garp laughed loudly. Observing Sengoku's confusion, Garp grinned.
Do you really think Emu would spare us? The god of this world would never allow anyone to witness her true monstrous appearance. Ha ha ha.
Sengoku's mind raced, recalling past events like the Buster Call O'Hara incident. The world's darkness, the so-called justice of the Marines, it was all a fabricated lie orchestrated by Emu herself.
Garp!
Sengoku asked quietly.
Justice? I began doubting it from the moment the Marines captured Roger. The so-called justice only serves the victors. Today, I understand the truth.
Garp replied with a weary smile. The elder of the 5 elders chimed in, voice grave.
The so-called justice of the Marines is merely one of Emu's tools to control the world. I have served Lord Emu for centuries. I know this world far better than you.
On the battlefield, the spectacle intensified. A 9-headed hydra, its body covered in magma, collided with a colossal eastern dragon, equally magma-laden. The world shook with their thunderous clash, the ground beneath them obliterated, and everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius annihilated. Clouds were torn from the sky, seas surged into the air, and the space itself descended into chaos. If not for Ashveil's Conqueror's Haki wall, the Whitebeard pirates would have been obliterated instantly. The heat rose dramatically, boiling the sea. Admiral Aokiji activated his ice age, cooling the area somewhat and stabilizing the Haki wall. Witnessing this apocalyptic scene, the Whitebeard pirates and the united army were left dumbfounded, barely able to comprehend the scale.
This is a battle of gods.
Golden Lion Shiki exclaimed, awestruck. A massive mushroom cloud loomed over the Whitebeard pirates area, visible for thousands of kilometers. People across the world marveled at the explosion, unsure whether it was divine wrath or the clash of peerless warriors. Meanwhile, Ashveil and Emu stared at each other, neither breaking composure. Their previous collision had neutralized each other's attacks, proving their fight was evenly matched. The sea boiled with Ashveil's magma power, the aftershocks rolling over the ocean. Ashveil's expression remained calm while Emu's composure faltered. This young man had withstood her full power strike, a first in her centuries of rule.
What's wrong, Emu? Your expression doesn't seem so confident, planning to surrender.
Ashveil narrowed his eyes, a subtle smile on his lips. Emu's breathing became heavy. For the first time in her life, she felt the stirrings of fear. This young man before her was no ordinary fighter, he was a threat she could not ignore. Below, the elders of the 5 elders watched in disbelief. The labor-clad elder's eyes widened, bloodshot with shock.
You're joking!
Vice Admiral Tsuru observed closely.
Look,
She explained. Sengoku, witnessing this, muttered in awe.
I never expected that even the creator god of this world is no match for Ashveil.
Garp Everblunt added.
Creator god, she's just a monster in disguise. Her true form is that of a demon.
Chapter 200, Ashveil vs Emu 3. Whitebeard, Hawkeye, Golden Lion, and other heavyweights watched the battlefield with exhilaration, while Marco, Ace, and the others cheered for Ashveil.
Gururarara, I never expected that the boy I took in 10 years ago would be on the verge of taking down the god of this world, ha.
Whitebeard exclaimed, raising his Murakumajiri, a surge of aura rippling outward as his laughter echoed across the battlefield. Marco, Jazu, Vista, and the others smiled broadly. Now their Whitebeard pirates truly felt invincible. No one, not even the 4 emperors or the god herself, could challenge them. Once Ashveil claimed victory, the Whitebeard pirates would stand unmatched in the world. On the battlefield, Emu's expression was fierce.
Ashveil, I never imagined you'd be this powerful.
She exclaimed, incredulous. Ashveil's lips curved into a slight smile.
I also didn't expect the creator god of this world to be weaker than anticipated. I overestimated you before.
He murmured. He gathered all of his Conqueror's Haki once more, focusing it above his head. This time there was no artistic shaping, he formed it in its raw, most primitive state. A colossal sphere of Conqueror's Haki emerged, massive as a mountain, crackling with pitch-black lightning. The air around it shattered under its presence, resembling a miniature black hole.
Then let's end this, Emu. This is my strongest attack.
Ashveil said calmly. The spherical Haki, fused perfectly with the power of his rumble fruit, surged forward at unimaginable speed. Emu barely managed to erect a Haki defensive shield, but the black lightning sphere shattered it instantly, sending her crashing into the sea. Torrential waves surged upward, each larger than the last, the sky above awash in seawater. Even the Whitebeard pirate's Haki wall trembled under the relentless onslaught. Doflamingo, protected within the Haki shield, looked pale.
Did anyone else hear that?
He asked cautiously.
It's just the waves hitting the Haki barrier. Without Ashveil, we would have been swept away long ago.
Zephyr muttered. Admiral Ayakiji's expression was grim. One wave could be handled, but the constant barrage fueled by Ashveil's Haki was unstoppable.
No, it's more than that.
Empress Hancock called out.
There's a strange hum to it.
A continuous buzzing rose from the depths of the sea. Black currents writhed across the waters, reacting violently. Golden Lion Shiki stared in shock.
The sheer scale.
Uruj pointed at Bickley, lying motionless after being electrocuted, and shook his head.
Even with Haki protection, this is insane.
The buzzing lasted a full minute before fading, leaving a massive crater in the seabed. The water level dropped tens of meters as the ocean settled into the void. Ashveil's single strike had reshaped the topography of the sea.
Sorry, Emu.
Ashveil said, smiling faintly. Suddenly, 2 massive arms, thousands of meters long, shot from the depths of the sea toward Ashveil, moving at nearly the speed of light. His Haki defensive shield automatically activated as the previous barrier shattered. Explosions shook the ocean like miniature nuclear blasts, throwing fragments of shattered water into the air. Hawkeye narrowed his eyes.
Is this?
No one had expected her to survive Ashveil's devastating attack. Whitebeard nodded solemnly.
Fortunately, Ashveil's Haki shield protected him from being ambushed.
Golden Lion Shiki and the Revolutionary Army exchanged worried glances.
If she's still alive, and with this form,
Garp clenched his fists.
If she comes for us, we'll fight. She must have used a lot of energy defeating Ashveil. That's the moment to strike.
Emu emerged from the sea, arms retracting. Her eyes were as cold and ferocious as ever. Her body had grown larger, a python-like tail extending from her back. Is this?
Lowly humans, once I finish with Ashveil, none of you will survive.
Emu hissed, licking her long tongue. Ashveil activated his phoenix fruit, forming an even stronger Haki shield. Emu bared her fangs, green saliva dripping as she grinned.
You're clever, Ashveil, but I don't need my old weapons anymore. My strength has surpassed the human limit.
Human limit?
Ashveil said, his expression calm, almost amused.
One dodge doesn't impress me, Emu.
He gathered another massive Conqueror's Haki sphere, crackling with black lightning above his head. Emu smirked, disdain clear.
The same move won't work twice, fool.
Ashveil smiled slightly.
Oh, then how about this next one?
Another giant white sphere condensed in the sky. The ocean below trembled, rippling violently as the sphere pulsed with white tremor energy, shattering space itself. Whitebeard's eyes widened.
That's the tremor fruit, combined with Conqueror's Haki.
Emu's eyes flickered with unease. Lightning resistance alone wouldn't save her from this space-shattering attack. Ashveil's grin widened.
Ready for more, Emu.
Another colossal sphere appeared, icy in nature, freezing the rolling waves beneath it solid. Aokiji gasped.
Residual power stronger than my ice age.
Kizaru muttered, stunned.
10,000 times stronger than your ice age, Aokiji.
Before he could finish, a dazzling yellow Haki sphere appeared, radiating blinding light. Beams shot outward, exploding violently, leaving everyone shocked. Kizaru adjusted his sunglasses, awestruck.
Impossible!